Hey, everybody. If this show does anything good for you, please leave me a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. It takes just a second, and it would be a really big help to me and this show. Hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons, and have a great day. Today's episode is with Officer Jim, a retired police officer who had a very colorful career. Officer Jim was on the SWAT team for 15 years, served as an undercover property detective, a field training officer, a firearms instructor, advanced officer training instructor, explosive breacher, fitness instructor, blue ox driver, and trainer of tactics. Enjoy. Today's episode is brought to you by We, the People. It's our job as American citizens to remain watchful of people trying to take our freedoms, take our power, and change the structure of our country.
He's not videotaping. No videotaping, yeah.
No, it's live videotape right now.
Oh.
We're on the internet right now.
Gotcha.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just messing. I was just messing with you. All
Is
right.
that better? We're good?
Yeah, that's much
Okay.
better. Jim,
Yes.
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So, we're going to get into a lot of police stuff today.
Okay.
You spent a lot of time on the force, doing a lot of different stuff.
Yes.
But before we get into that, we'll go through just kind of who you are, your childhood, how you grew up, things like that.
I like that. Perfect.
So-
I grew up the typical middle class kid, and neighborhood where all we did was ride bikes and goof around. Strict parents. My dad grew up on a farm in Ohio. Mom from Ohio also, so it was all business. Our summers were not laying around goofing off. It was my mom would sign me up to go to either to a class or go help at a like a YMC camp for special needs.
Oh, wow.
So grade school was normal. I kind of found out some stuff later on in my life why I chose. I'm very athletic, kind of hid myself in athletics so I didn't have to go home, which I just found out a little while ago. Totally different story. Like why I stayed so busy, with basketball, football, wrestling, baseball, and track and everything. I played every sport in high school and was gifted, very, very gifted athletically wise.
And you're avoiding being at home.
That's the conclusion I came to, yes. I really, really did not want to go home due to, it was just, my dad would walk in. He's not very big, 5'6", probably 180 pounds, but he walked in and it was like, did you get this done? Not, hi, Dad, hi, son, how you doing? How was your day? A hug. And, we didn't tell each other how much that we loved each other.
Yeah.
Which, through our relationship with my wife, we greet each other with a hug. We greet each other, hey, I love you. How was your day?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. And so very normal upbringing. Thought I was going to play professional football. Another side off-track story, I got invited to a wrestling school, a WWE wrestling school when I was up in the Bay Area. And kind of blew it. And I see why God didn't want me to do that either.
Yeah.
I would have been the biggest jerk. And
Comes with the territory, huh?
It would have been a bigger, I fight the ego and the pride thing constantly, but I have I'm also very type A personality, confident. I know who I am. I know what I can and can't do. I'm good with saying I'm not going to do that. I know I'm going to fail at it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So just growing up with that and sports, just, being the driving force for me, making grades and everything. The worst student in the United States, just terrible, hated school. It was just a social thing for me. From grade school on, they'd go to the parent-teacher conference, and I would come home and start shoving paper in my, pants because I knew I was going to get spanked or punished.
Oh yeah, trying to soften the blow.
So our my dad's discipline was swift and severe. Whenever you did something, it was whatever's in his hands you got hit with. From a bullwhip, we had a little thing right there, a rifle rack, and it had a bullwhip hanging on there. And my sister and I, we got disciplined severely. So, making that firmness and that basis early on in my life made me, I want to be the best dad. I want to be the right husband. I want to be, there for my kids. I want to greet everybody, every family member with a hug and a kiss and tell them I love them.
That's great.
So I think a very typical grade school, high school life, all wrapped around academics.
And your sister's older, younger?
I have two sisters. I'm the baby. I have a sister who's in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad had a previous marriage, and we didn't know about until maybe high school that I knew I had a stepsister. Yeah,
wow,
half sister. Me and my sister grew up together here. She's 5 years older than me, And, we both had the California bug in us. So when we both got out of high school, colleges, all I wanted to do was get the heck out of Phoenix. I was sick of the desert, sick of the heat.
When did you move from Ohio to Phoenix?
My parents moved. I was born here in Phoenix, yeah, in St. Joseph Hospital.
Okay, so
Yeah, born and raised in Phoenix. But I did, I think, 12 or 14 years in California, San Diego, and the Bay Area.
okay, so how much were you in Ohio?
Never. I was born here in Phoenix, yes.
Well, I must have misunderstood.
Yes, I got family in Ohio and family in California now.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're a kid in Phoenix.
Yes, growing
Super
up.
hot summers.
Riding our bikes, never.
Oh yeah.
That was the time period where we didn't pussify our kids. And,
Yeah.
And, hey, it's too hot. Come on in, Junior. No,
Yeah.
it was Jim. Get in here. It's time to get your chores done. You're not playing until you get your chores done. You're not playing until your homework's done. And, with my dad walking in, and my mom was would hug me and love me and all that stuff. My dad was, hey, let's go play golf. Let's go do this. I'll play catch with you. And he was quite older than all the other guys, where I would hear in grade school, hey, is that your grandpa? Just drive me nuts. No, that's my dad. And he had just had me later in life. Mm-hmm. So my sister's 10 years older than me. My oldest sister in Ohio. My other sister's 5 years. So there was a big gap.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time I was there, and again, not knowing, ADHD and stuff like that, I was bouncing off the walls always want to ride my bike, always want to be on the go.
Did you get diagnosed with it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, just, with my wife sitting here, she going through teacher and stuff, she's like, I think there's no way. And every job I wanted to do, with football, I could not work in an office. I could not be at one place. That's why I chose my retirement job the way I did. And being an officer for so long, I love getting in a car, going and doing stuff.
Different
you're here,
every
you're
day.
there, and rather than being in one place. And we'll get to later, I hated the paperwork. That was the hardest part of the job for me, was sitting down, typing the paperwork, and getting caught up on that.
Were you good at it?
At the paperwork?
Report writing?
Funny story. I'm a very direct and I can't think of the word right now. I'm a very direct thinker and speaker. So my reports, I found out when I retired, our records clerks would fight over my reports because a lot of people throw a lot of fluff in there. My wife's a very good writer, and when I would, let's say on a homicide, there's got to be a little more information than showed up and saw a dead body. You got to put a lot of scenery,
Detail.
which way was the body laying, what wound did you see, and all that stuff. And there's time where you can look at, and I have to call her and go, what can I add to this report? I don't know what else to write. Well, talk about that.
Yeah.
So report writing, I felt very confident in it. Once you learn the stuff that you need to know for a report to get the charges, a conviction, I think it was pretty rude. Change the name, change the date. That was it. And when I first started, you are constantly taking notes, writing everything they say down. I think in probably my 7th, 8th year, I've heard this story 4 times from other people, and I'm just doing date and time and address now, and victim, suspect name, and all that stuff, and just writing a couple notes like injury to the arm or face or something like that. So I felt pretty confident with my report writing. For me, that was the necessary evil, obviously, that you have to do. You can't go out there and run and gun and then not back it up with anything. Everything's documented for a reason. So for liability reasons.
Right on.
So I don't know if that's enough background on my. I know I'm a type A person. I can push, pull, I can lead, I can follow.
Yeah.
Love team settings and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very confident in my thing. I'm sure a lot of people would call me cocky, but there's a difference, and I know the difference. I'm very confident in what I can do, and one of the levels we talked about is that we one of the first uses of force levels is command presence. You walk in, excuse me, can I help you? What's going on? And just how you say that and stand and your facial gestures and all that stuff you learn at the academy. And I've had command presence just being a leader in sports and stuff.
Yeah, you said a lot of people would see that confidence as cockiness.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but I'm through high school. There was probably a cocky period.
Yeah,
a very cocky period.
Of course.
And I think once I got married and remarried to who I'm with now, with Rachel and all that stuff, and I know who I am. It's like I have nothing to prove. I'm going to go about my business and know what I can and can't do.
Yeah. So then you graduated high school in Phoenix.
Graduated high school in Phoenix.
And then went to California?
Went 2 years of junior college, played football, played baseball from first grade on. And by the time I got out of high school, 12 years, I was kind of burned out. But the old shoulda, doulda, wouldas, which I never wanted to live by, I should have stayed in baseball. I was going to be drafted my senior year. They talked about a late round draft choice for baseball. And I'm like, tell the scouts I don't want to do it. I'm going to focus on football. I just wanted to play college football. And then going into college, looking back, I should have been a dual sport with baseball and football. But football is a year-round sport with spring football and winter ball once you're through with that, and in the weight room training all the time and all that stuff. So it was kind of a nice just focusing on one sport.
That's good. And then, so after the 2 years, then you moved to California.
I got a scholarship to San Diego State and played there 2 years, yes.
Okay.
And
how'd you do in school at that point?
whatever I could do to get by.
Okay.
And with being honestly, I would cheat, whatever. We had instructors. Our counselors knew, the not very proficient students. So our counselors would guide and direct us. This instructor's pro football. So get in this class during the season. Now you have to take your core classes in the off season, and you got to buckle down. So I would just, barely get by. One of my favorite classes, because you take all this stuff that I saw I was never going to use, was this nutrition class that I read from cover to cover, and just am enamored with nutrition. And exercise is still a huge part of our lives, for us. But just a struggling student would do whatever it took, and was C average all the time. It took whatever it took to stay eligible so I could get on the field.
Yeah. Oh, so at that point you're about 20 years old. You do your 2 years.
I graduated at 16 or 17. Started my freshman year as a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about junior college, we had people from all around the country, and a couple of them were from the Mormon faith that played at BYU, and he's coming back from his Mormon mission, so they send a lot of their kids to our school, to Scottsdale, to get them tuned up. And my freshman year, I started at inside linebacker, and I'm playing next to a 26-year-old man, basically, that was just incredible. What a great athlete, what a good kid. Mormon faith, never cuss. And I professed my faith, my Christianity faith, way back in high school. My junior, probably a year after my sophomore year, so probably either 75 or 76, I gave my life to Christ in. So what's the name of that? Young Life, correct. They had what bought me in was, hey, we've got a plan for you, and not just really God in Christ has a plan for you. And that just was like, wow, that really made me think about, I really want that. I really need that. I want to know where I'm going. I know I want to go play college football. I know I want to go in the NFL if I can, if I'm gifted enough. And it didn't pan out the way it is. So this linebacker with his faith never cussed, and it was, I just badgered him about cussing, and I'm like,
tried getting him to say bad words.
I would get him to say the F word, because he would say the SH word and all that stuff, and but just when he was not on the field, a very low key. He was Native American. 6'3", 245 pound, and I'm barely 5'11". I played at 220, and this was a violent man. And you get him off the field, he was the nicest guy in the world. But I badger him. For instance, we got in trouble. Our linebacker coach is still a good friend of mine today at junior college, and he coached me in high school. He coached me in junior college, and then he got me a job at NAU when I was coaching. We got in trouble, didn't live up to standards that day of practice, so we had to do sprints afterwards. He goes, I'll tell you what, if whoever wins this first sprint doesn't have to run the other 9. So I'm like, all right, okay. We got in our stance, and he blew the whistle or whatever. I sprinted, knocked him over, and ran down there. And he's like, you mother effer. I'm like, you said it. So I would just do stupid things like that. And our junior college team was probably one of the best football teams I've ever played on in my entire life. Everybody went to major colleges after that, and it was a joy. It was probably one of the best collegiate times of my year. San Diego State was a little different. Just tons and tons of people there for the wrong reasons, and so just did not. I forgot where I'm going with this now. See,
So, well, when did you realize you wanted to become a police officer?
holy cow! So let me a step back. My dad basically made a comment to me one time and said, "Hey, I know you're not going to like this, but you'd be a good detective." I'm like, "What? No way." And my thought process was I did not want to, and I'm going to offend my friends that listen, I did not want to be a little sissy carrying a gun. And that's what I would call them. And I would badger them. If they showed up at a party, I'm like, "What are you guys doing here?" So I found out that I wanted to be a police officer when I moved back in 1990 to Phoenix. I was in California until then. And the reason I left California was the October 1989, I can't think of the date right now, October 17th earthquake in the Bay Area that dropped those bridges and the freeway and everything. I was living there at that time, and it scared the living dog pee out of me. It really scared me. So at that moment, our condo was probably 50 yards from the Hayward fault line, and I told my ex at the time, I said, I want to get back to Arizona. Look what we can own here. We're in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Our daughter was just born, and we need a bigger house. This is it. This is all we can afford here. The next buy would have been out to Stockton. We were in Hayward, or not Hayward, we were in Fremont, California, in the southern bay, just north of San Jose. And so Stockton's a good hour drive, but with traffic, it's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
That or Gilroy was the only other affordable place, and you're driving into San Jose with all that traffic every day. So it would have been a 2-hour commute everywhere. So I convinced the ex, we came out here for my 10-year reunion, high school reunion, and I go, look at what we can buy and own for a house here. We can own a beautiful, beautiful house. So I come back. I was working for a trucking company, got my commercial license early on after I quit playing football because I really did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to be in coaching, and in the Bay Area, and from San Diego, I left to NAU to coach. My linebacker coach became the defensive coordinator at NAU in '85, and he hired me to coach defensive line as a graduate assistant. So got my foot in the door. He goes, I know this is what you want to do. I moved from beautiful San Diego to NAU, and it was 20 below zero the first day I got there. So we saw the future in coaching as every couple years you're moving. It's a transient job where someone loves you, hates you, and they like your philosophy, they like your intensity. And I moving from San Diego to Flagstaff almost killed me. It was just not easy.
Yeah.
Starting over and all that stuff with a family, and then moving to the Bay Area. I moved up there after I left. I was there about 6 months at NAU.
Okay.
And moved up to the Bay Area. And then at that October 17th earthquake in 1989, the Bay Series, it was the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants were playing each other in the Bay Series and in the World Series. I moved back after that thing dropped, and we came out here for that, found a house. I was able to transfer with my trucking company and started driving truck here. But a lot of my friends were firefighters, and they had a semi-pro football team because when I had to leave our son and daughter in the Bay for our condo to sell, and the company said they needed me out here right at the first of the year. So our daughter was born on the 21st, January 1st. I'm in Phoenix, so she's a little toddler. The house got sold, and then drove up there, and we moved out there.
And
but I started coaching and hanging out with all my old friends that were all firefighters now. And
Okay.
a
So
couple guys,
you were coaching January 1st.
they had a semi-pro football team, the Rangers, that my friends were playing on, and the guy I was staying with was the quarterback for them. So I knew everybody on this team. So I'm looking at that, going, wow, I think I want to be a firefighter. Look at these guys; they get to work out, on duty, wash their trucks, wash their cars. They're helping people. I better add that in there with the fire guys that get all mad at me. You are helping people. And, what a fun job. What a fun job. So contacted a couple friends, and I knew the police or the fire chief and the previous one and the current, the couple current ones before I went over there, and they go, "Hey, great, we'd love to have you as a firefighter, John. You know, it's a super competitive job, but in 1990, there's this law called affirmative action, and I'm sure people are going to be agitated. I just said that word." And he goes, "No matter how old, no matter how you test, John, and I know you're going to test well, we have to backfill all these positions. So it's going to be probably a 5 to 10 year plan for you to get on." And this is coming from a chief. And he goes, "I'm so sorry. I would love to have you on. You'd be a great firefighter."
What's affirmative action?
It is where they have to hire, they've got to be balanced.
Oh, is this the diversity, equity, inclusion thing back in the
Yes,
90s?
yes.
This is when you have to have a certain...
You have to have a certain amount of minorities in your organization.
I just heard this kind of broken down a little bit the other day, where it's not necessarily a have to, but there's certain ratings that you get as a corporation or a business or whatever, that you'll get higher ratings, or you'll be more able to get bigger loans if you check all those boxes.
Yes, definitely.
So as far as like city work, because firefighter is paid for by the city,
City.
I don't know how that works. I'm assuming it's a similar thing, since they're a money-making entity.
Probably. I did not know how the thing worked. He goes, "Hey, I'd get your fire science in you." And I didn't finish my degree in college. As soon as I got my eligibility, you have 5 years to play 4 years. I got a screw put in my ankle my freshman year after we went to a bowl game that year. And went up and played in the snow in Flagstaff, broke my ankle. So I came back to Phoenix. I'm rambling now, sorry.
No, you're good.
I-
So you looked at the firefighter thing, realized that's going to be a long road, can't do that. What's next?
I've got 2 kids staring at me in a brand new house. So I took a right turn, grabbed the Phoenix police test and the Glendale police test.
So that was the...
That was the deciding factor. I don't
But
know
what
why.
motivated
Well,
it?
let me back that up. One of the guys playing on that team was one of my former lieutenants over our unit, and our SWAT unit. And he goes, "Hey, come do a ride along, Jim. Come do a ride along." I'm like, again, I don't want to be that little sissy carrying a gun. I rode one night with this officer. He goes, "I'm going to put you with this guy." We worked graveyards, and I came home so excited, like I think I know what I want to do with my life now.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of it. So I tested. I finished number 4 with Glendale, or number 5. They took 4 or 5. They took the first 3 right then, and they said, "In July, there's an academy that you're going to be going to." So I tested with Phoenix, same thing. They said, "There's an academy coming up in July, but I can't tell you if you're in it." And, looking backwards, there's a reason for everything. So I took what was at hand. Basically, I took what Glendale had made a commitment and said, I'm going to go there. So that was, I growing up, this whole long answer is not knowing what I wanted to do. I enjoyed driving truck. I really did. I got my license early on after I quit playing ball. A buddy of mine from church in San Diego owned a truck, taught me how to drive in the harbor, in Long Beach Harbor, because we'd pull containers to the rail yard. Mm-hmm. Everything comes off a ship container and goes in the rail and goes throughout the United States, or truck, So I learned how to drive with him, So that was, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed, because it's, again, boom, I'm constantly moving. You were unloading and loading freight, which was, I knew was not going to be good, and be long term, was going to kill my back and hurt my back a couple times. So this lieutenant sets me up, and I it was just meant to be. It was a God thing.
So you applied, get accepted, you get a commitment by Glendale,
yes.
And then July of what year you're going into the academy?
July 91, I was in the
academy.
1991,
okay.
Yes. I waited about 4 to 6 months.
How'd you finish in the academy? Did they have rankings or anything?
You asked about academics, and you asked, so I'm class 242 at the Phoenix Regional Academy when they were stress academies. And you're tested in academics, criminal law, fitness, firearms, and I finished at the bottom of the class. But there's a caveat to that. And a good friend of mine, I went to the class, and we're still best of friends. He finished. He took criminal justice in college, so he had a leg up on me on learning that. So I finished with the 91%, and being that crappy student I was fat, dumb, and happy until I saw the rankings. I'm 4th from the bottom. So our commander at the academy goes, this is the most educated class, the highest class ever, with one person in the 80s, with an 89 point something, like an 89.9. And I go, I'm at 91 something. I'm like like Ricky
Yeah.
Bobby running around the track, all happy. But the things that I took pride in, I finished #1 in field problems.
Yeah.
With the way I actually run you through with actors and stuff like that, I finished at the top with that. Fitness, these guys are 130 pounds, and we're all running South Mountain at the time.
Okay.
And they run your little donkey into the ground up and down them hills. And I am not
Oh, yeah.
a long distance runner. So fitness, I probably finished middle of the road, but there's push-ups and sit-ups, but that sets the tone. And I know one of your questions later is, what can we do different in the academy? And I'll get into that in detail. But
Yeah.
that was a donkey kicker, the academy.
Yeah.
That same friend who's a good fitness freak also goes, it's just like football camp, John. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Man, the first time I saw him when I was in the academy, I go, you lied to me. You lied to me. We ran every single day. If an instructor did not show up, put your shorts on. We already ran an hour in the morning up and down South Mountain. We're going to do it again. So
Man.
that was some tough times.
How long did you serve on
I
the
did
force?
25 years.
25 years, and you retired at 25
Retired
years.
at 25,
Right
yes.
on.
Yeah.
Okay. And you, how long did you serve as like a patrol officer? Because you have to do that before
Everything
going.
starts with patrol, yes.
Yeah, you can't
Everything
do any
starts with
specialty.
patrol. And then after, it was 3 years back then, I tested for SWAT, and I tested for sergeant before I tested for SWAT. And it was kind of a joke, but I wanted to see what the process was. And it's an oral board and sometimes a practical.
For SWAT?
Not for SWAT.
For
so the
sergeant.
first test I took was a written test and an oral board. And there were 27 people testing for 2 positions. But I finished 20th. But they always tell you, hey, is there anything else you want to say? And that's when you sell yourself. And this lieutenant, when I'm sitting on the board, said, hey, you don't need to say anything. You've already said enough. You don't need to sell yourself. And I didn't. And I should have looked at it and said, no, well, let me tell you why I would be a great sergeant, supervisor, and leader, and mentor and all this stuff. And I think if I would have finished higher had I brought that on, but I didn't, and I finished 20th out of, and some of the 5 people after me or 7 people after me promoted later on in their careers, and I held that pride because I didn't promote because I got on SWAT with 3 years on, and I was the beginning of the new transition of the new people because SWAT started in 1981, so 1993 when I got on the team, it was all the people that had been on there with maybe a couple changes with negotiators and some command post people. So not a big movement. There'd be 40 people testing for 1 or 2 spots a year, maybe, and maybe every 5 years because nobody wanted to leave that unit. To me, it was the most prestige. So you start in patrol. I saw SWAT come out on something on a barricade, and I just was enamored. Like, what do you guys do? So with a year on, I started going and being the bad guys for their training. I started going to every training day with them and staying up because once a month they trained back then, either shooting or a scenario. And so I volunteered to be the bad guy, and they beat the crap out of you when they take you into custody. But it's like when I came to test for it, when I had my 3 years, that was one of the things they stopped me. They go, you don't need to tell us about how much time you put in. Because I put 2 years on being a bad guy for them and hanging out, picking up weapons, cleaning and all this stuff, and going to the range shooting with them.
So they knew you.
They knew who I was. They knew. And it is, as you mentioned, your neighborhood's full of special ops. After a while, you ask them how they get people on their team because everybody's the same. It comes down to personalities. And can you fit in this tight-knit group? And it's different. It's really different once you get to that level. And I'm not going to say it's an elite level, but humbly, the guys I was around were much better shooters, much better bomb guys, much better than myself. But they made me want to achieve. And it was a teamwork that I just was enamored with.
Well, you're not going to be good until you're trained by someone good or until you practice extensively.
Exactly.
If you're constantly looking up, then that's the direction you're
like
going.
your bison thing in there. That's right. You're going to keep looking up in your bathroom.
That's right.
And again, it fit naturally for me. I'm a driven person. I know what I want to do. 5-year plan. I don't think I have one now at this stage of my life, but I knew I wanted to be on that team. Tested, and it's a fitness test first, then it's an oral board, and then it's a practical. Your shooting scores are all looked at. And I think I finished 1 or 2 on the test, and there was 1, maybe 2 positions opening up. So nobody goes on the team and goes strictly into an entry position back when I went on. And they were the elites of the group, the best. The SWAT's comprised of negotiations, perimeter, command post, and entry team. Plus, we had our bomb techs. Plus, we have firefighters on their captains in case we shoot somebody, we get hurt. We've got someone right there at our last known entrance point to whatever building or wherever we are to get us emergency aid quickly.
So when SWAT is called out, there's a fire captain or some sort of a medical technician that comes out?
There's at least 2 medics that come on, and they've always been fire captains. And we're one of the most unique departments in the nation where our firefighters did the same shooting qualifications we did. So they are armed too to protect themselves if they had to. We literally, if we shot somebody in this room, we'd drag the body out to the hallway down there to a safe zone. They'd start working right then and there. And then our team would move on and clear the other rest of the house. So somebody'd stand by, cover them, and someone's covering them back then in case someone got past us on the entry team. So it's kind of comprised. We had everything not handed to us. We could make a phone call to a psychologist, like, this guy's on this kind of medication. How's he going to react?
So you had all kinds of resources.
Yes, exactly.
So did you get on SWAT first try?
I did.
How do you get onto SWAT? Physical test?
Thank you for bringing me back. It's a fitness test, it's a written test, and it's also a firearms test and an oral boards. And with a group of supervisors from the team asking you questions. So, man, for 6 months out, I was interviewing everybody on the team. What questions do they ask? What do I need to talk about?
Nice.
What kind of stuff is spoke of at the oral boards? And you start picking every bring, and then I'm a flashcard kind of guy. I would write my questions at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when the city would shut down and the calls would go down. If I wasn't busy, I was constantly hitting my flashcards and speaking out loud so you can hear yourself speak and talk and remember it better. So I did that, did really well, and accomplished that. And with 6 years on, but our team is a part-time team, meaning there's not 25 of us that are just doing SWAT things. Because of our training, we get pulled into different areas, and a lot of it is training the rest of the department. We got sent around the country to different places to learn building searches. Active shooter was a big thing back then. We had the Columbine shooting when I was an officer and on SWAT. And about 6 months later, we had the Pioneer School shooting where this guy took his class hostage right after that. So we, were prepared for that. So we got trained on everything, but you had your primary job. So I was in patrol for the first 6 years of my career.
Okay.
And then I tested for this unit, which was a property crimes unit, undercover unit.
Before you get to that, when you tested and you got onto SWAT, you're still a patrol officer that's on call for SWAT calls,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So if something happens that needs SWAT,
Yes.
then you are coming off of patrol and
Yes.
going to something
Correct.
that's required for SWAT.
That
Okay.
is the perfect analogy of it. Yes.
Okay,
SWAT
great.
takes priority over everything. Homicide takes priority over everything. So
when you got hired onto SWAT, was there any kind of a SWAT school you went to get you up to speed to what they do? Or is it still just one day a month of
funny.
training?
It's the 1 day a month. I was already getting to be a firearms instructor. You've got to get your general certification to be an instructor, first of all. So I got my general, then firearms school, which a lot of the schools you go to are gimmies. They're gonna put test questions up on the board every day and say this is what's going to be on the test. These are the answers. So you're taking notes of all that stuff because they want to see you pass and get certified and whatever. But bombs, be it the breacher school I went to, plus firearms, they flat out tell you there's people that are not going to pass this class. They will not pass this class.
Does everybody in SWAT go to breacher school?
No.
How do you get to go?
At the time we had, let me tell you about Glendale PD. They were the number one breaching team in the nation next to, and now Las Vegas has surpassed them to explosive breaching. So our staff was sold on the dynamics of a explosive breach over a mechanical ram or whatever, break and raker, depending on. So everything we did was started by an explosive breach, which was phenomenal. How you get chosen that? some of the senior guys were starting to retire off the team. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on you. The equipment, your regular gun belt's probably 40 pounds, and your regular vest is, you're probably 35 to 40 pounds of extra weight you carry. And people leave the job because of back pain, with their gun belt sitting on their hip and all that stuff. And there's a way you got to sit in your car. If you're a wide body like I am, you got to sit a certain way, and you just get used to it, or your back's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. But your tactical vest, that's 35 pounds in itself, with a steel plate in the front. All your weapons you'd carry, my rifle, extra ammunition, it was 70 pounds of gear. So I weigh 240. I'm weighing 3-something with this stuff, and you got to run with that stuff on. You've got to get from place to place to place in a hurry, and so you have to be in shape. So it wears out, body parts on you. It is a young man's game. One of my friends is still on the team after probably 22 or 23 years, and he's coming up his 50s now, and he's still able to make the fitness requirement and still making call-outs.
Awesome.
Oh, he's a stud. He's a real-time stud.
So during SWAT, what were some of your most memorable things that you went out to? You mentioned Pioneer.
I didn't get to finish. I apologize. I'm bouncing everywhere.
Oh, that's okay.
We did all in-house training when I first got on the team. I was on our team 6 years, and I went to the Mesa school, SWAT school, a basic SWAT school with that lieutenant who's a great friend of mine. And it was so easy. This was a beginner SWAT school. That was the first outside training class I got to go to with 6 years on the team. Then once these entry guys started leaving, I came in, I was on command post first. Then I went to perimeter. So our perimeter stays on the outside, and no one cross-trained at the time. But you had to know how to shoot a sniper rifle. You had to shoot. We had Styrogs sometimes, and then we went to ARs for the perimeter. And we had MP5 9mm for entry. So everybody had to know, in case somebody went down, that they could pick that up. But our entry team was so staunch and so well-rehearsed that they would not bring a new person in. And once one of the team members left, and I had an opportunity to go to entry, I was put at the back of the stack until they all felt. But every training day, hey, Jim, get up here. You're going point. Jim, you're going number 2 now. Jim. And it was just to get me trained up to their speed. And I laugh at the new guys. It's making me cry. I laugh. You talk about, I'm a competitor. And now you've got these world-class athletes, what I'm talking about. Their expectation, because your life is in their hand and my life's in their hands, they want to know, you go into a room, you don't follow me, you do this. There's, the tactics are everything. So you practice that till they feel comfortable, and then they start moving you up. So I literally didn't make an entry until probably my 3rd year on SWAT into a building. If I did, we had something where we had to do multiple entries. So they had to suck in our perimeter. So I went to command post first, I went to perimeter second, and then I went to entry. And then on entry or on perimeter, they knew that's where I wanted to be with the entry guys. And we were doing something, we had to do a multiple entry points, so they had to split our perimeter team up to go make entries with that. And they started seeing how I rotated, and it's all about communication, and no one, one goes one way, but there's a way you do it on every door, inward facing door, outward opening door. I mean, there's everything we practice 1,000,000 times. And then once a person comes into a room, it's 2 men to a room with we had a constant point at the time. And then we started going to a shield. So everybody's got to be on rhythm. It is a fluid thing where everybody's got to be confident with each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't get my first training to answer that question until 6 years. And then, man, I was all around the country. I got to go to Florida, Alabama, Vegas a lot. There's a lot of training up there. And 2 or 3 breaching classes, with one of them being here with someone just coming out of the Army, which I always loved when we got the military training, because there's a whole bunch of formulas with breaching. You have to be a math wizard, and I can't think of the term yet. The cube root is what overpressure is based on. And I could still hear your buddy yelling at me. in the class, because you have to have a calculator with cube root on it to figure out the size of the room and then the overpressure in that room and how much of a charge you can have in that room.
Yeah.
That's got to be calculated before anything. So when you
Before any breach?
before anything's done, when you're setting your charge, you got to know the size of the room it's going into, where you're doing it at.
How do you know that in every single instance you're breaching a building or a room?
It starts getting pretty standard. It starts,
Okay.
and we built a whole bunch of, we would det cord 12-inch strips that we would get indoors quickly. And everybody had a bunch of those with them. So igniting that, and then the overpressure in a hallway compared to an overpressure in a closed room. And the bigger the room, the more of a charge you can have, because you don't want to blow your ears out or blow your eyeballs out. That's how you die from an explosion is the overpressure. Mm-hmm. So knowing that and going through and learning that, it was incredible. So I loved it when I was working with the Army guys, because they'd come out and there was no cube root. They didn't care how much, because going in Iran and Iraq, which I think you were at,
Correct.
they're like, we've warned this family, we've given everybody in the neighborhood time to get out. Shame on them if they're going to stay in this building. Yep. And they had dropped the building. So there was nothing they would find out. A standard house, they would just overstack it with explosive just to level it. And now they're just looking through, boulders and stuff to see if there's anybody alive. That's it. So their calculations were so much bigger than ours. So that we had bigger charges and stuff like that every time we went to these military schools. It was fun. Rather than, our goal was to use the minimal amount of explosive to do the maximum amount.
That seems to be the best approach.
Yes.
Did you ever have an instance where those army guys having their bigger explosions became some sort of an issue?
Well, a lot of them were, they're obviously hearing. We all have tinnitus now.
Well, I guess I mean more like a civilian liability.
They never talked about that.
Right on.
Again, they would go out and warn the area they're going to do. This is a hostile area. If we're coming after this guy, but there was never a calculation on, okay, we're going to use this minimum amount. They're going to do the maximum amount because they want that thing to drop right away.
Yeah.
Or whatever they're going to do. And, us throwing flash bangs compared to a grenade, we're doing it to divert people away from us so we can obviously take them into custody without harming them, for their safety, rather than I'm dropping a grenade in there and whatever frag, okay, I'm coming in, cleaning up, finishing. So different mindsets.
Right. So in SWAT, when you're in the city and you're working with these guys, are you still using their calculations to breach these buildings?
No.
Okay. So they had to adapt to your calculations.
Yes. The city is way different. And again, I'm totally blessed. Got to work with SEALs, got to work with Rangers, got to work with Raiders and all that stuff up at Gunsight up the street here.
Yeah.
And
because if you're dropping buildings or if you're cutting buildings in half with these explosions, there's going to be a lot of repercussion in the city.
Yes. So, the liability that we have compared to what they don't have, because it's an act of war. Just going up there and always getting the recognition from the SEALs and these elite athletes, I'm going to call them, saying, man, I don't know how you guys do it, because we have to see our threat, know what he's, and he's got to be a threat at that moment. He can't be running away and I can't drop him from behind. He's got to be actively shooting at me or holding something and moving the weapon in a direction that's where it's going to harm me for me to take that shot. So we would, Gunsight's got a bunch of buildings that we would make entries to, so we can have good guy, bad guys, targets coming up. These guys coming through, drilling everybody and going, oh, I don't know how you guys do this. Yeah, you have to see your target before you can pull that trigger. And we're behind the ball a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So you work at, obviously you're taught what to look for. Hands are what are going to kill you, not the eyes. So you're always watching people's hands when you tell them, hey, I need your hands out of your pocket. That's why officers walk up, hey, would you mind taking your hands out of your pocket? Well, F you, no. I need you to take, for your safety and mine, I need you to take your hands out of your pocket, or I'm going to take them out for you.
Yeah.
So especially at SWAT's there's no niceness and there's no negotiating at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, whole different element.
Yes.
So when you were in SWAT, what were some of the things that you got to do that are really memorable experiences?
Oh, my goodness. We got to do dignitary protection for the president. President Bush, Air Force One was out at Luke Air Force Base. We got to guard him. We got to be in the procession. And a group of our entry guys, and we worked with Phoenix that night. And you can't believe how the presidents travel with how many people. Huge. And we were the first unit after the media. So his elite tier one operators are in the black trucks behind his limo that do the dirty business. They're gonna rescue the president out of there, and then media is gonna scramble, and then we're the first group to go up and attack and engage the threat at the time. So just being in this 100-car harmonica or accordion, excuse me.
Yeah.
We would get on the freeway. The limousine would take off at like a bat out of hell, and then all the cars, the reporters are all in white vans and everything. And here we are in a white van also with the door open. I remember sitting there at the door. I look over at the speedometer. We're doing 100 something, and next thing you know, he's slamming on the brakes because everything's coming to stop because the motorcade's getting off the freeway at the time, and we're skidding by the media, and I just see their faces looking at me. I'm hanging on. I've got my rifle slung in front, all our tactical gear, and I'm just sliding around, and we're skidding by all the stuff. So just stuff like that. Some high value targets we went after, cartels and drugs, and search warrants all the time for drugs and meth labs. We're a lab certified team, so we would go totally encapsulated on oxygen into a meth lab. And God, on average, we did probably one call out a week. So that's 4 a month. And the 15 years on, easily 1,000 some, search warrants to barricades and to.
So when you guys are getting called out to these things, you're going kind of from target to target rather than from start to finish of all the information surrounding that target.
Well, we get briefed before we get out there, unless you are one of the immediate action guys that you've been on your assignment. But if you're woke up in the middle of the night, you're turning your radio on and letting them know you're up, and you copy that you got text or paged back then, and you get a certain amount of time to be there. You're getting information. There's a tactical channel on our radio. We switch over to that, and you start listening for units coming in. Here's your safe avenue of threat, and then you don't get the information until you're there on scene on what you got. So it's usually relieving patrol or a detective or an officer involved shooting. So they're going to hold it first, and then we're going to get there and take over. We're going to get all the information we can, what kind of weapons, how many hostages are there, and all that kind of stuff. And they start naming assignments, and our team leaders would start doing diagrams, pulling stuff up, or usually the on-scene sergeants would have a magic marker and they're drawing on their car. We got units here, we got there, we need these guys relieved, coming in out of that. So some of the, those are some of the memorable things. And just everything was so new and exciting in the beginning. And after a while, on year 10, you're like, my wife and I finally went to the Compass Room because we were newlyweds, and we went there, I think, for our year 2 anniversary. And my pager goes off.
No.
Had to leave right in the middle of it. She's like, is this how it's going to be? I'm like, I have to go, honey. So we went back after I retired, and we took a picture like, hey, we finally got to finish our early on anniversary dinner without getting called out.
Nice.
So, yeah, I wrote some things down.
How?
The Super Bowl, working the Super Bowls. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. So when the Super Bowl happened here, it was the first time, right?
Yes.
And when that happened, I was in the police, Explorer
Explorers,
program
yeah.
for Glendale.
Uh-huh.
So I was out at that new facility way out west.
Gripstick, yes.
Yeah, Gripstick with the FBI guys were out there.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of, I got to see a bunch of cool stuff being a teenager wanting to become a police officer. Wow. And that was pretty awesome.
That was by far. So every Super Bowl, there's so much planning that goes on. So the Super Bowl's in Glendale. Us and Phoenix are the lead agencies for our tactical teams. So there are so many teams that come in from the surrounding areas. It's a 2-week process prior. We went on 12-hour shifts prior 2 weeks prior to the Super Bowl, because there's so many parties, so many dignitaries here. There's usually a team up in the air in a helicopter continually while that's going on. One on the ground stationed close by in East Valley and the West Valley. So we're obviously in Glendale. Scottsdale's a big host. Phoenix is a big host. So their teams are close by working events then. So we had a day shift and we had a night shift. And luckily I was senior enough at the time when we got that first Super Bowl. And I was a breacher at the time. So me and another breacher, for that game itself, I had half the explosives with me to get us on whatever door we needed to at the game. We were hidden away. Half our team was split, and we were inside on that one. The second one, I was off our team at the time, but they still gave me. I was at the command post in the Blue Ox, which is where they ran command out of at Gripstick, and all they did was land helicopters the whole day, and land and go, land and go. They brought 5 or 6 birds in from the Border Patrol, and that's all the teams were up in the air with that. And there's fighter pilots up in the air the whole time the game's going on.
So what kind of threats are they preparing for?
Let me just tell you that
Seems excessive to me. I mean, I can think of a
the
couple
first game, I'll tell you one. Phoenix got intel that a guy had a cache of weapons, and they had a name, a description, and he was stopped right outside Glendale Avenue, or on the way on Grand Avenue coming from Phoenix. Phoenix SWAT made a stop on him, and it was true to be. So we have every intelligence agency watching the computer, watching for threats, watching for Odyssey and stuff like that. So that was the absolute first, and we don't release that unless the media asks for it. So there was an actual threat on this one, and probably other stuff that we didn't learn about. We saw that Phoenix took the thing off, or maybe I want to say it was even closer, not on Grand Avenue. It may have been at Glendale Avenue that they took this person off without incident. And then just all the parties, all the dignitaries coming to the game. You've got Secret Service working, dignitaries. You've got us working, in our tactical gear.
Did you guys work with a lot of private security?
Did we?
Yeah. Did
No,
any of
not
you?
at that event. No. You are, Glendale SWAT.
Right.
So
Only the official agencies is what you guys were working
Yes.
with. No private security.
other private securities were probably there for some of the celebs and stuff, but they had to make themselves known. There, everybody had either a wristband or a lapel thing that marked who they were, so that obviously we didn't shoot the wrong person, but obviously don't point weapons and without giving verbal commands so we all can hear. So I worked the second one as just. They're gracious to me and let me work in command posts in the Blue Ox, and all I did was eat food and watch helicopters land. But the threat there, was it was a time when I was retiring. That was in 2015 that we had the Super Bowl, or 16, because I retired in 16. And it was a 15 or 16 Super Bowl. I think it was 16 Super Bowl. The day before, I'm in a used car place in Glendale. Her and I are looking for just an old beater truck for a year till I retire. And I'm in there. They knew I was an officer. It's right off Glendale Avenue, one of those crappy brands. I wanted just a beater car to last a year till I retired. That was it. I just sold my truck, my pride and joy. And, I knew I was retiring. We stop in there. One of the managers comes up and he goes, "You're an officer, right?" He goes, "Let me tell you a scenario here. These 2 Middle Eastern guys came in here. They want an SUV. They want to pay $9,999. Well, $10,000 is the threshold that you have to report. So they wanted something for that." And he goes, "I have their license. I have, all their information, because, we got to take copies of their license when they go out for a ride. And they're both from the Middle East. One had a license, one had a European license. Call a friend who's Joint Terrorism Task Force.
A what task force?
Joint Terrorism, JTTF.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of agencies with the FBI, ATF, and everybody. Gave them the information. They went, and the names, one of them was on the terrorist watch list, but they lost track of them. And they found out where they lived at locally and went to the house, found weapons and explosives. Again, we didn't report that. So I'm working at command, FBI, their commanders, their big wigs and cheese. We're talking about it. Yeah, just some random officer. So I go, "That was me." And I go, "So what happened?" "Yeah, we found this, this, and this." That was a legitimate threat. Wow. Did not, think, right place at the right time. And people responded and got the information out as quickly as possible.
So did you get a truck?
After looking at everything, I did so well on my truck. I knew I wanted to buy a new truck when I retired. She goes, "Go get it. The money that we just got from your truck that you sold, let that make the payment until whenever." So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
I bought a brand new Chevy or a GMC, at the time.
Ah,
That
good
was my
stuff.
retirement, a year early, which was nice.
So you mentioned Pioneer School earlier. What was the
Yes.
incident with Pioneer School? And you were on SWAT at that time?
It was right after a month or 2 or 6 months after the Columbine incident. This kid who was a troublemaker had taken his eighth grade class hostage at gunpoint.
Where is this school?
It is just south of Greenway Cactus High School. It's just south
Oh,
of Cactus High School.
okay.
In that neighborhood. It's a feeder school to Cactus, just north of the canal and everything. So we get the call, and thank God, we're building a charge to go through the wall. So we're gonna throw a diversion in, and we built the charge to come sideways at him, which he didn't know. And luckily, he came out right before we started negotiating with him. We got a teacher on the phone with him, his parents on the phone with him. Get your dumb donkey out. You don't need to do this. This is not a big deal. And he surrendered. Thank goodness. So that was, it was all too real. And we talked about earlier when we were eating about, another memory when we were at the prison standoff at, I forgot the name again. Lewis State Prison, the longest standoff in U.S. history. We were out on that, and just, the scare of if we were to make an entry into that guard tower, we knew somebody was going to get hurt. We've talked to all the guards on here's what they do in prison when they know they're going to enter the cell. They throw feces and urine down, Vaseline, everything, so you're slipping and falling into it. So that's probably going to be the bottom floor. And it was just, they're in a tower in the middle of 4 yards, like I said, with about 15 yards or 30 yards that we had to run to get to that tower. So
Big open area.
oh, it was a scare tactic.
Yeah.
Big time, where I really, at that time, I go, man, I'm going to lose a friend. I'm going to lose somebody if we have to make an emergency entry into this.
With the school, you were set up to blow a charge to open up the wall.
To a wall charge, yes.
So, and this was into the classroom where all the
Yes.
students were?
Yes.
Who decides where to set that charge, and do they have intel on where the kids are?
Yes, we get diagrams. We get intel from, obviously, maintenance. Is this a steel studded wall? Is this a wood studded wall? What's the distance on that? And we're in another room that's similar to it, trying to, drilling in to see what's the distance on this. Can we get a body through this? If we set a charge, can we go through? And it was going to be me going through it. So we're measuring. I need it as wide as a stud's going to go, and I got to step through. And there's a certain way you do it with your rifle and your vest on. If you do it the other way, your back's turned, so you're stepping through with left foot with your right-handed shooter, so that you're coming squared up on whatever you see right away. But we didn't have to do it.
How would you know where the kids are?
At that time, we didn't have access to thermal at all. From what I remember, we were able to, from one of the teachers that left, one of the principals was trying to make contact with them. And like, we have them in this area. I can see they're all down in one area. So he made them sit down and moved away. So we're obviously not going to do a charge right there.
Is there a window in the door?
No.
Or something?
There may have been a window in the door. Good question.
Okay.
There are no windows on that classroom.
Right, so I'm just thinking, if I'm setting a charge to blow a hole in the wall where there's a bunch of kids being held hostage, how do I know I'm not blowing 5-6 kids away when I'm trying to save them?
Well, what you need to know also about breaching, though, the overpressure is on us. That's on the charge is on our side. So this was going to be a cutting charge.
Oh, so it's coming back.
It's going to be a copper charge.
So it's not blowing
into
any
the
force
classroom. Nothing.
Oh.
And that was one of the selling points we got our staff to buy into,
Wow.
and why
Okay.
we were so, world famous. If you Google Glendale PD explosive breaching is our gift, and our experts were experts, and I took the classes from the original guys that went through it. Russ Corps was the name of the first group, and he was a Army bomb specialist. And it is a 2-week dynamic class where the first week is just getting you used to, handling explosives and dynamite and nitroglycerin and all that stuff, and the det cord and all that stuff, and how to ignite it and all that stuff. It was by far the first week. They tell you this is going to be the fun part. You'll make it the first week. The second week is all calculations and doing charges successfully. So we did that. And who makes that decision? Our team leaders, our bomb guys get together. The bomb guys have all the stuff, and we would get with them and build the charges. But we had 3 or 4 people on the team at the time that had been to breaching school.
So there's really no danger to anybody on the other side of that
Nothing
wall.
on the inside, because we put our staff inside on a door and said, we're going to blow an inward opening door, and we want you guys inside. And they're all, well, we're going to get hit. It's going to hurt. Well, you're going to put earplugs on, and we're going to tell you when we're going to do it. We want you guys to see what it's like, because there's no pressure. The explosive's on the outside, and we're getting it, not them. And it's directional, so that's why when we carry shields, a bomb blanket, we'll get right up to a charge sometimes and be able to, if we're directing the blast out that way, you're holding on to the cover and everything.
Wow. Other than that, were there any other incidents in SWAT that really stood out that you like? I'm sure you could tell tons of them.
One of your questions, what was your favorite position? Obviously being on SWAT is still by far my greatest joy, my greatest triumph. For me at the police department, working undercover was so fun, and I got to do some fun things there also, which we'll talk about in a minute. But just seeing them go out, to this day, I get such a rush and want to run up and go, I used to be one of you guys. I'm that guy now. I used to be one of you guys, which I hated when people walked up to me, hey, I'm retired. Hey, good for you. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Now it's me. I think I'm more proud now that I'm retired than I was on the, like, again, sorry, fire. You guys wear your shirts all the time. I never wore my police in my police stuff ever.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to know what I did. And something I thought of, honey, was we had to have a code word when I worked undercover. We're at the library one day at the Glendale Library, and getting stuff for the kids. My wife was a teacher, so we're getting stuff for her class, getting stuff for our kids. We're in school, and I had just made an arrest from my UC unit, because we also did violent felons and fugitive stuff. I made an arrest of this guy who was going back to prison for the rest of his life. And just so happened, his daughter's in the library at the time and comes walking up, you took my dad from me. And we had to call the word out, and she knows to take the kids instantly to the car. So I'm like, hey, your dad made that decision. I'm walking her away so she's not seeing her and the kids leave, walking backwards and all that kind of stuff. And then walked outside, walked opposite of where I knew our car was, and waited. It may have not been cell phone time that, but maybe, called you after she cooled down. I go, ma'am, you probably want to stop, because this is, disorderly conduct right now. And if I call for another unit, you're going to go to jail. So I'm sorry about your dad. He made this decision, but, this is on him.
Yeah.
And I think she finally left, obviously. I walked all around the damn library and walked back, and, she was frightened as all heck. The kids were scared, and like, hey, welcome to my job. And along that front, I think I showed you a picture. I had a beard down the middle of my back, stomach, and hair down the middle of my back. And every time we'd go out to dinner, I went up to the bar one time and stood there for like 10 minutes. The bartender asked everybody, what can I get you to drink? What can I get you to drink? My wife walks up, she's beautiful, and he goes, what can I help you with? She goes, you can help my husband who's been standing here for 10 minutes and get his order, please. Oh, sir, obviously you're judged by, that book's judged by that cover, and I look like, some thug idiot all the time.
Yeah.
No.
How long were you on SWAT?
I did 15 years.
And was that consecutive?
Yes. And then came off. I had my first knee replacement, and that was, in my 40s, every other year I was going in for knee surgery. So after I got my left knee replaced, there's no way I could come back to that team. And I felt to diminish. They had a fitness requirement, and that's one of your questions on there. There's a fitness requirement for that unit to maintain your fitness level once a year, or it was quarterly. So I, didn't want to disappoint my team, and that one of the best ways to diffuse stress is through exercise. And it's been built in my life, my whole life. So exercise has been a big, huge part of it. But I couldn't run the way I used to, and I knew it was time. I gave them a year and told them next year I'm coming off the team. Gave them time to plan, to test, to bring another entry person and start working with them. It's funny, the guy that took my spot, Corky, he took my rifle, and he's our investment guy now. Oh. So if people don't know about tactical guys or special operators, they're a different breed. They get away with a lot more. And I tell people there's nothing you could say to offend me because I've heard it all from my friends, what they're going to do to me after I pass away. Because they would talk about that in the truck, and I'm sorry. Wife's telling me to dial it down. All right.
Oh, man.
But just some funny times. I mean, just bashing on each other. And you get there, and it is, okay, you know, our driver of the armored trucks, okay, we're 30 seconds out. Hey, love you guys. Let's be safe. You know, fist in, and that was it. It was all business from that moment on. And, you know, obviously you load your truck the way you're coming off. Whoever's going first, the doors on the back of the truck and all that kind of stuff. And last person, perimeter people, if they had to go with us, but they had their own armored truck and go. So
you worked SWAT, you worked undercover what? And
it was a property unit. We had undercover narcotics guys, and we had property units. So
and you were a property guy.
I was a property guy.
Were there any other specialty areas you worked?
I did a school resource officer, which was the hardest job of my life.
Oh, really?
Yes. Wow. I worked at a grade school, Barcelona grade school. Oh, God bless them little kids. They're job security for every police officer.
Yeah.
It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and it takes a special officer with a lot of patience.
Yeah, I bet.
And again, as I said, I know my personality, and I scared the school, but we had some softer officers work this school before I did, so they expected a lot different than me. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. We can't do this. And I was gone quite a bit because if the priority was SWAT, when that paging went off, bye guys.
Yep.
You know, I got to go. And later on, when I'm coaching football at Cactus, same thing. I'm on out on the field. My pager goes off, and this drove. If you know that coach, he's very demanding of his coaches. And I go, this other job pays the bills. This is my priority. My football players are my priority, but we always had to have a backup coach because I had to leave a couple of times right in the middle of practice.
So what was the transition like going off of SWAT and into undercover?
I was still on both at the same time.
For how long?
The undercover unit's 5 years. You have to come off. You come off. And it's not just strictly undercover. It is fugitives.
There's a 5-year crossover that
There's
you were doing both?
There's a 5 year you have to rotate out so that there's no stagnation. Nothing was permanent back then. The only permanent things were SWAT and homicide, that you did not have to come off that team.
Okay, so you were working undercover property, and then sometimes during that you'd get called out to SWAT?
Or I would buy some explosives from somebody, and we'd go back and do a search warrant. So you know how distinguished my voice is. I'd be at the back of the stack. So I would go write a search warrant. We'd go back to this place and get the rest of this stuff. Or if you had a weapon or if you had cars for evidence. So property is anything except dope. And, you know, we would buy it if we had to, but I would introduce another detective from our narcotics unit. I didn't want to know anything about it. I just knew it was a ton of paper. And I, again, told you how terrible I'm at school. So writing more search warrants were just not with that unit, we would do dignitary protection. We helped homicide out, go pick up guys that were running from them that they couldn't make contact with. So we'd do the surveillance on them. We would, you know, and then go pick them up. We'd do those scams on them, call them, hey, this is Joe from Discovery Card, and we're offering free cards with $200 limit. Would you like one? Just stupid stuff like that. And they'd answer the phone, come to the front door, and we'd have 5 people on each side and yank them out of the house. Nice. Or, you know, if you're on probation or parole, there are no, you know, rights to you. The probation officer would go right in the house and walk us in with, you know, we'd walk in with them and take the guy into custody. And
so there were times where you were creating, like, I guess, where you were creating a situation where somebody's breaking the law, somebody you're going after is selling a stolen property,
yes,
or explosives or something that obviously they shouldn't be doing, and then you turn around and be a part of the SWAT team that goes in to collect the rest of the stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, that served the search warrant.
So there's different levels of search warrants. So anytime there's a weapon involved or any kind of weapon involved with that automatically throws it to SWAT to look at. Was this guy a threat? Does he have a, you know, potential? Has he been, you know, what's his violence potential? Which is, you know, they do a records check on this guy, and is he, you know, okay, he did time for armed robbery. He's going to be a threat. We don't want the regular detectives to do it. So on my undercover unit, I also had 3 SWAT guys on there too. So we would take the horns on something like that. And if somebody, we had a couple employees that were with the city, they thought they're going to get problems when they're handing them the notice. So we would be in the room right next door to them if they went crazy, and just in case, that when they hand them their walking papers, we do stuff like that. Stolen cars in this unit were a big thing. Saturns were the number one things getting stolen at the time, and we'd go out and do research on areas that we thought were target rich areas, obviously where a lot of crimes being committed, and we'd just go hang out there and strike up conversations with people, and that's how it all would start. We got a grant for a storefront where, hey, these people that we made contact with, hey, here's where we're staying at. We got this business, and after hours, bring the stuff by. Which, like I was telling you, we got video cameras everywhere, microphones everywhere, where we'd bring them in and all that kind of stuff. A question I don't think you've asked me: what are you going to do when, if someone sticks a gun in your face and says, "Hey, let's do this line of cocaine"? Cops can't do this or whatever. So that's actually an overboard question to get on this unit.
And then the answer is, sir, I've seen Training Day.
Actually, I freaked them out a little. I kind of I go, obviously, a gun pointed at my head or doing a line of coke. I'm not, smoked weed in high school a couple of times. That was it, my level of drugs. And I go, obviously, I'm going to do the line. And I go, but, let me just tell you, I'm calling the Cardinals right then and there when I get through with this deal. And if there's anybody playing football time, I want to run on a kickoff and just drill somebody because I ain't going to feel it for a couple days. And they're just looking at me, holy cat, knock it off, Jim. So that is a question on, how are you going to handle it? Obviously, a gun is instant death, or doing that where you're going to go notify your supervisor, you're going to finish your deal, get out of there as quickly as possible. But we would practice actually with our bottom finger. And on one of the videos we did, a guy was stealing weapons from a house and is doing a line. Hey, let's do a line. I'm like, no. I go, you think I'm nuts now? I go, I will kill you right now, and I'll go and find your family and eat them. And I would just say stupid, random stuff like that.
Just to get out of doing it.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, no,
Yeah.
you're fine. Not, because I know a cop can't do a line, or I know a cop can't lie. You got to tell me if you're a cop. I'm like, yeah, I'm a cop. No, I'm not. You got paid to lie about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no case law on. You've got to identify yourself as an undercover police officer.
Are there any stories you have about the? You want to take a break?
I'm good.
Cool.
I'm good. Just have her top that off. Thank you.
Are there any stories that you want to share that you can share about the motorcycle clubs or any cartel stuff?
Man, I think the sensitivity in giving away tactics, but I can talk about, being in rooms with millions and millions of dollars, looking at my partner on our entry team, just going, man, I could use $20 for lunch, but never wanting to tarnish my integrity or my character for, taking some money or stuff like that. Been in rooms with bags and bags of dollars and stacks and thousands pounds of weed and cocaine and everything.
And these are drug busts?
These are drug arrests and stuff like that.
Are these cartel related, or do you know? Most of them are cartel related.
Yes.
Was fentanyl a part of the scene when
Not
you were
at the
working?
time. Not at the time. It was meth, a lot of meth labs, a lot of meth being brought over from the border. And once they saw how expensive it was, they started doing cooks here. So we did a lot of hotels. They would do portable cooks. So we had to be trained in that for SWAT. And my unit would investigate them, or the narcotics units would call it. There were a couple SWAT guys on the narcotics undercover team too, so they could help out with the search warrants without pulling a full team on there, or pull the guys from our property unit that were SWAT to go help them on their warrants. So there's a full call out, and then there's a partial one, so we would do the partial stuff, along with, again, dignitary protection and plain clothes. Our homicide guys used this one time on a cold case, and they had an anniversary of the death of this girl from Glendale High School. They thought they had the suspect, but they wanted to catch him. They did what's called the confrontational call, and he wouldn't bite on the phone. And that's, so they wanted us. We had recorders on, and we were just people in the crowd at the celebration of 10-year anniversary where this person was killed, where West Valley Mall was. If you remember that, right on the corner of 59th and Northern. we're there with microphones on trying to stand by this guy to get him in conversation. And our detectives were going to try and also get him and confront him a little bit. Don't you just want to come clean? And, we had everything on record.
Good. So he killed this girl? Is that what happened?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
turns out another detective, cold case, solved it, and it was not even this guy. So wrong lead, and it was finally solved. It was somebody else that we thought. So stuff like that, we got bounced around the apartment. I love the diversity of it. And then there were days that we would just go, hey, we're having a lot of crime at 59th and Bethany. We'd go hang out in the area. That's all we did, and start making friends with people, handing phone numbers out, handing a beer out to people. Mm-hmm. And then, next thing you know, they're calling you back. Lucked out. I mean, we talked about memorable cases. I did Glendale's first murder for hire. A lady we were buying stolen property from. My partner at the time, the funniest guy, he's a homicide sergeant right now, getting ready to retire. We had the best, funniest times ever working this case. And this lady's all pissed at her husband, says, I need someone to whack him. And he goes, hey, Jim does that. We didn't think anything of it. Walked out the door, purchased a stolen property. It was not even probably a couple $100 stolen property. And, we're just getting into it. And about a week later, she calls. She goes, I want you to kill him. Okay. Didn't have, we have recorded lines that we can, call her back. Hold on, I'm out taking a dump somewhere. I'm over here doing this, hold on, let me call you back. And we call them back from this block number that we could record everything. So I had to get it recorded. Then I had to go to the attorney's office, county attorney, and say, here's what I got. Here's what I have so far. And then we did another meetup with her where I'm mic'd up and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I need payment up front. I need half up front and the other half when I'm done. And I'm going to give you pictures. And then it's, how do you want me to do it? What method do you want? She goes, I want him to suffer. And she went on and on and on, and we got it all in recording, gave it to county attorney's office. She's like, okay, meet up again, get the payment, and let's take her into custody.
Was she specific about how she wanted you to kill him?
Oh, yes.
What did she say?
She wanted me to first torture him.
How?
Cut him and I go, you want me to cut his hands off? Cut, an arm? What do you want? She goes, whatever you want to do. I want body parts, and then I want you to set them on fire. Okay.
And she was dead serious?
She was dead serious.
How much money did she pay you?
It was only a couple $100.
You were going to do a murder for hire for like less than
Which
$1,000?
you would think would be a clue. Like, this guy's got to be
full of crap.
Well, here's the funniest thing of all to me. So I'm mic'd up. We have a patrol car that's got microphones in it. They arrest me. They take me into custody. They beat the crap. I still want to this day every time I see this officer that took me into custody, because you want to resist a little bit, make it look good.
Slow down. Paint the picture. So what you get this? You're with this lady in person?
Yes.
And you're saying she's paying you.
She gives me payment, and I think the down payment was a stereo or something stupid. And as soon as I take grab of that, I let the team know that, okay, and then here comes a patrol car coming down. And, I get her situated because I knew which way they're coming. I have her back to them. And then they come up, take her into custody, handcuff her, put her in the car, put me in the car. And at the back of this patrol unit, which is, again, there's speakers and microphones in there to capture everything so we get more convincing evidence. I'm like, you snitched me off, you bitch. And then, obviously there's some other words going on. And she's like, I didn't, Jim. I didn't tell anybody. So our homicide guys take over the investigation, and they're literally showing, by the time they're through interviewing, they're showing her pictures, my detective picture. He is a police officer. She did not want to believe him that I was a police officer. No way. That guy, Jim, is not a police officer. Just screaming at these.
So when they arrested you, these are your buddies.
Yes.
And they were kind of kicking your ass a little bit.
They thumped me pretty good. They got me in the side, and, if you've ever had handcuffs on, if you're of any size at all, I've got to relax my shoulders. Oh, they're yanking everything, and I'm, hey, knock it. And boom, I think I got a boot in the side, a knee in the back. And if one of my friends ever listened to that one, you know who I'm talking about. He's a retired Peoria guy now. So
You ever do any other murders for hire?
That was it. There was one other one. Another detective did one after about 10 years after mine.
No,
So
that's wild. And did this lady say why she wanted her husband dead?
just a bad marriage. She was a big time drunk and yeah,
Just
yeah,
bitter.
it's just not good. She was
Yeah.
living in either a halfway house or they were separated at the time, and she hated him, and that was it. So
Wow.
yeah, not good.
Man. Well, let's talk a little bit about the training of police officers and what they could be doing better. Because I walk around and 1 out of 5, maybe 1 out of 7 cops I see is very clearly overweight. I could kick the guy in the shin and run and get away with it. And, I mean, if I can outrun the taser at least. But what's going on with the academy these days, as far as you know, and what should they be doing instead? Especially with what they call, what is it? Your yearly standard test that you have to
Yes,
keep up, which
advanced officer training every year. We've got to maintain our firearms proficiency, criminal law, some fitness, but fitness is not mandatory. Fitness is not mandatory, but one of the classes I went on early in my career was a psychologist and how you deal and handle a long career in this job without going crazy and ending up with PTSD. And obviously fitness and all that stuff is one of them. And it was easy for me. When you come out of the academy, I was so sick of running long distance. But your actual question was, what would you change in the training academy? We had, and a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, went to a reserve academy. I think that should stop. They don't get the same that we do. They get the same qualifications, but the stress of being either at Tucson, MCSO, or Phoenix full time, and you do nothing but police for 16 weeks is pretty damn intimidating. And back then it was, like I said, a stress where they flat out tell you, we're not here to coddle you. This is not the fire department. We're not going to help you get through this academy. And I started with 50 people in our class, or 48, and we graduated around 30 people. And every day in the beginning, our class sergeant would walk in and rip the nameplates off because they were papered, and you had to sit in alphabetical order and all this stuff. And you're just like, oh God, we just lost them. Or, and then the mind games and the stress and the firearms and the driving techniques and fitness is such a part of that, and the running part that I'll get to later. That what I would change is that, and just a side note, I would bring the media to the academies because they're the quickest ones to judges. Why'd you shoot this guy in the back? Why'd you shoot him anyway? Couldn't you just come up and tackle him? Well, there's standards, there's policies that we all work on, and every time we would bring the media to one of the training scenarios where we'd put them in simulations, they failed miserably, and we explained to them, okay, here's the rules of engagement, here's what you do, a deadly threat, your job is to protect your life, the citizen's life, and an innocent bystander's life. So if they're going to use deadly force, you're going to have to use deadly force. You can't shoot in the leg, the biggest part of the body. And why couldn't they shoot him in the arm? Why couldn't they shoot him? Why did they shoot him in the face 5 times?
Well, these are people.
I'm happy I hit the damn target.
Yeah, these are people that haven't been in a situation like that with that level of stress.
Yes,
and the same kinds of restrictions.
Exactly. And every time the media went to that, they would literally hand us the gun back and go, "Wow, we did not. We were so stressed." I go, "You guys shot everybody. You shot everybody." We'll give them a shoot situation, a no-shoot situation, have a guy turned and just turn and have a weapon. And, okay, this could happen. Okay, he's going to turn and shove his phone up at you. You got to see that like that. You've got to see, hey, he's got an address in his book. He's got his credit card. And you can't shoot. And they shot everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see what we see?
That's one of the really one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, is because there seems to be a huge disconnect between the public, people who have not been in situations like that, casting major judgment or criticism on, these types of incidents when it's an isolated incident. It takes place, then it gets blasted on the media. Everybody makes their judgment, and now people want to defund the freaking police.
Oh yes. And as I would tell my friends, even with the George Floyd thing, I go, I'm not that officer. I wasn't there. I know I would have handled it different, but you can't judge until, one of the first questions I would tell everybody, we're the shell answer man. We're here to educate the public and tell them what they can and can't do. You better have an answer when you get out of your patrol car or your detective car when you're knocking on someone. You better have an answer to their question. So you got to be versed in everything. But the first thing when people want to throw that judgment ball, I ask them, when's the last time you've been in a fist fight?
Second
Oh,
grade.
you never have?
Yeah.
Oh, as a female, you've never been in a fist fight? Then you want to tell me, who's now got in a fight with a guy with a weapon, a knife, who doesn't want to go back to prison for the rest of his life, who is scared on meth or on heroin or whatever, and now you're going to tell me how to take someone? I go, you can't even stand in the tennis shoes of that officer.
Yeah, and maybe one of the reasons that you've never had to be in a fist fight is because you're living in a somewhat safe society because of the work that police officers are doing, which people fail to recognize often. And
crime is driven by social economics, and people don't realize that. So the poor neighborhoods, unfortunately, are going to have more crime.
Yeah.
And just a brief story, later on in my career, after I came off of SWAT, I went back to patrol, did want to promote. It wasn't what I needed to do. All my numbers are set, yada, yada, yada. I'm in patrol. I'd go in the projects on days, and the amount of people just sitting out there, and I would get what the hell you do? What F you got? I'm like, seriously? You're pissed that I'm here. Why are you not at work? I've got a mental disorder. Oh, I've got arthritis in my elbow. I go, so you've got your medical marijuana card too, and you're sitting home doing nothing. So with everybody sitting home staring at each other, what are they going to do?
Well, they're just going to soak up the money that the taxpayers of the people who are going to work.
But then break into people's houses and get in fights because they're home and they're pissed off, they're drinking, they're using, or whatever. So why is there so many officers, and why is there higher numbers in that stuff? Because as you get, everything we did as an officer is predicated by your seniority. Yeah. So when you come out or when you get hired, you're going to go to a high minority area where there's a ton of crime, because we need officers. They fill shifts by the amount of crime, and staffing is done by the amount of crime. Mm-hmm. So you're going to go that. When you get a chance to bid out of there, you're gone because you're sick of dealing with everybody's problem every single day.
Yeah.
So
there's a relationship between police and citizens that requires a certain level of trust.
Yes.
And, if you feel as a citizen that you can't trust that cop or those cops or any cop, that's a big problem, because that not only puts you in a state of fear, it also puts all the police officers you run into a more dangerous place.
Yes.
Because they have to not only battle the situation, but they have to battle a situation with a person that's in a state of fear.
Yes.
People in a fearful state are far more dangerous than people who are calm.
You put that badger in the corner, he's going to come out swinging. You don't know what he's going to do. And as I tell people, how do you judge? I go, you go into a room with a bunch of violent people, the guy barking is the guy that's not going to hurt you. The guy sitting over in the corner plotting what he's going to do to you when you turn your back is the one that I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah.
I'm obviously asking for more units, but if I'm by myself, I'm keeping an eye on that guy sitting out there, because he's calculating when I turn, he's going to come jump me.
Yeah.
This guy running his mouth like, calm down, Forrest. I can give him verbal commands to calm it down. So part of that question, when's the last time you've been in a fight? And when's the last time you had to put handcuffs on me? Because I'm telling you, I was a pretty good athlete, and I wrestled, and I was finished 4th in the state. No one in this room, no one at the police department would put handcuffs on me unless I allowed them to. So now you got somebody fighting. It looks bad, but you're giving commands. Stop fighting. Put your hands behind your back. I would get one handcuff on. Now you're prying the other one. It looks like you're killing the guy.
Yeah.
But it's on him. You're giving commands. Stop fighting. Put your hands behind your back. Relax. It's not a big deal. Put your hands behind your back. And they keep fighting, because they saw it on the news. And that's police brutality. No, it's not.
Right.
No, it's not. It's us trying to do our job.
Yeah, it's resisting
We have
arrest.
A reason to be out there. As I started telling people, this is not the news. I'm out here for a reason. I'm conducting an investigation. If you don't talk to me, if you don't take your hands out of your pocket, I'm going to yank them out of your pocket, and you're going to go to jail for obstructing my investigation.
Yeah. Well, like I was talking to Rachel about earlier, there seems to be some victim mentality that's running rampant, and people are really quick to claim that harassment or police brutality, whatever can, I guess, make okay whatever the negative thing is that they're doing.
Yes. I would love everybody to walk in our shoes. And again, That's a later question, is you live for that one praise a year from a citizen walking up, hey, officer, thank you for what you did.
Yeah.
And, it's gut-wrenching. And then the guys in the red and yellow trucks pull up, they're here, yay!
Yeah.
And you walk in, what the hell are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know, I'd rather be eating donuts, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys called me, so I'm here.
Yeah.
What can I help you with? So you start your whole investigation off, your whole contact with a person negatively. And you got to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And, and what's it like being a police officer? My family, my wife, our kids is my safe space. If there was a term, like I want to come home, and it's probably wasn't fair to her, and people ask her how she did with it. And she said she always trusted me, but I think it was good that I felt like she trusted me, because then I didn't go to work and go into all these dangerous situations worrying about what she felt. She knew, hey, we woke up every day, and when I left for work, I gave her a hug and a kiss and told her I loved her. And because you don't know if that's the last time you're ever going to see them. Mm-hmm. So we got into that every day, that, when I came home and greeted her, hug and a kiss and I love you.
Yeah.
So we got into that, and our relationship is everything. Even though that we're retired now and it's just her and I, it's special to me. That is my best time, being around family and getting away from, when you're on the job, you're at everybody's worst day, from a dead baby to a drowning to a homicide to a theft. Now you got someone screaming at you that you can't arrest them. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me the law.
Well, if you're not fighting for love and justice, then what are you fighting for?
Exactly.
Power and control, probably.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
like our mutual friend says, or I've heard our mutual friend say, like you just mentioned, if I have to show up to a call, it's already negative because someone had to call the cops.
Yes.
You don't do that because
Yes.
you're having a party. Well, I mean, bad example. You're not calling the cops for good reasons most
Yes.
of the time. You're in trouble. Someone's in trouble. So right off the bat, you're having to call the government to come and solve your problem. But meanwhile,
exactly.
when you don't need them, you hate on them.
Yes.
Which doesn't make sense.
Well, a lot of it's just parenting the parents and go, hey, I need you to step up, and yes, you can punish. Oh, he says he's going to call the police. I'm like, you can spank and not leave a mark. If they need to be disciplined, you need to discipline them, ma'am, sir. Yeah. And a lot of it was just another hard thing I never thought about is you've got to do a lot of personal experience with everybody you talk to. You got to talk to a 3-year-old all the way up to a 90-year-old. Oh. And it would be like, hey, I understand you're frustrated. Your mom wants you to clean your room. You think she's barking at you all the time. But hey, it's for a reason. You are part of a family. I can't afford this. I go, you've got to go from personal experience and say, you have it pretty good here. And I've told parents, well, I can't get him to do this. I can't get it. Well, why? Well, he's always on his phone. He's always doing, well, take his phone away. Take away his safe space. If he's hiding in his room, take that door off.
Yeah.
I go, he's not going to want to do the stupid things. If he's not doing what you say, well, how do I get him? I can't touch him. Yes, you can.
Yeah, well,
we've sissified our parenting.
Yeah, totally. Parents
goodness.
don't know. If you don't have emotional control, or if you're not able to regulate your emotions when you're in a heightened state, then you're already off to a bad start.
Yeah.
Parenting can be like that. And with parents, if they can't regulate their emotional states, then they're going from 0 to 100 with no middle ground. And they're either, letting their kids walk on them, or they're beating their kids.
Oh my goodness.
That's one of those things that, our generation, mine particularly, wasn't taught emotional regulation very well. It seems to be a little bit better growing up, but
good point.
But now there's an overemphasis on emotion and safe spaces and pet the kitten, everything's okay.
Goodness.
So there's no balance. It's gone far in the opposite direction.
Yes. Well, I think every parent starts off, as I told you, my dad was very strict, but I knew he loved me, and my biggest fan at every sporting event, never missed a game, even in college. And every parent starts off, I'm going to make my kids better than, and be a better dad than what my dad, because I'm a competitor. I want my kids to have more, and I want them to know every day that I love them. And I have a wayward son that I talk about with everybody, who is my prodigal son. And, but that was his choice. He chose this and walked away. He walked away from our grandson and his son, which is just, I don't know how.
Yeah.
again, like I said, my safe space was my days off, our vacations. We lived for vacation and getting over to California and seeing family and seeing everybody and letting go. And we would always take the week off from working out and cardio and all that stuff, and that was a free time for us to blow it and everything and be dumb. So it was a good time for us. But I think every parent and every officer goes and has to share, hey, you got to listen to mom and dad. You're going to get nowhere if you're not educated. You're not going to listen to these simple things. How are you going to go to a job where you got to be there at 8 o'clock and you got to do these things?
Yeah.
And then you get it's not. Well, it's not cartoons and cereal all day.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean, you mentioned your faith earlier, and the Bible's pretty cut and dry about honoring your parents.
Yes, it is.
But at the same time, well, not but, and at the same time, there's abusive parents. So how much am I going to honor my parents, and how much am I going to make an excuse, whether it's abuse or whether it's discipline?
Yes.
You got to be able to distinguish the difference. And,
yes.
And if your parents are abusing you, you don't. I wouldn't say honor them. I would say get out of there.
I talk to my sisters about it all the time. I'm getting emotional. My dad was, again, he would hit us with whatever. I still love them to this day. They did what they were taught back then. Mm-hmm. If you didn't listen, my mom hit my sister in the head with a pan and split her head open. Went to the hospital. First words out of the emergency room lady was, why don't you listen to your mom next time? Exactly.
Oh, man.
Exactly. There was no abuse. I were contacting the police. I'm sure there was if there was a repetitive thing where we were going there. But obviously, we're in our teens. I wanted to know where, you had to have boundaries with me or I'd keep running.
So what decade was that?
The 70s and 80s.
Okay, 70s and 80s. So then if we're 30, 40, 50 years later, mm-hmm. kids want to be a different gender, supposedly, and they're getting taken away from their parents because their parents aren't affirming their gender. Can you believe that?
I cannot.
It's unbelievable.
I cannot. Yeah,
So that makes me want to crack people over the head with an iron pan.
Yes.
Not mostly at a minimum.
Yes.
Mostly the people that are making those laws and trying to.
They have feelings too. Things. Well, yeah. As I even my wayward son, my prodigal son, before he walked away from his son, I asked him if he knew he was loved. And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, then I did my job, son. If you knew you were loved. And again, while we're eating, we're talked about divorce and all that stuff, and he just blames everything on that, which every typical addict does. It's a reason for something. So, yeah, parenting is just one of the hardest jobs. And as an officer, you're another parent, because a lot of people, and literally, I would tell people, if you're not going to parent these kids, they're going to get removed from you, ma'am. You're not their friend until they're adults. Our daughter's 33 now. And it's still hard not to parent. And my wife reminds me, she's got all the decisions. Just let her make it. You don't need to make them for her. But, I look at her problems and go, I could definitely solve these in a day or two.
Yeah.
And it's not as big and emotional as you think, honey. So,
I'm still early in the game, but I think you see your kids' level of success as a reflection on your parenting.
Yes. Yes.
There's got to be a point in parenting where the act of parenting turns to the act of mentorship and removes the child's success or failure as a factor.
Exactly. And I've told, and she's Rach is a great reminder of, you did more than any dad I've ever seen with your kids. And again, I made them a priority. Yeah. Even though I got divorced. They knew that their love, they had 2 separate houses, 2 separate vacations, 2 separate Christmases, 2 separate birthday parties. So they knew that they're loved and special. And the family that I had in California and Ohio would make them feel special when they saw each other. So they knew with that.
Let's get back to the training thing.
Okay.
What training, what do you think would be better? You mentioned removing reserve academies and having everybody go through What's the difference? A full-on police
Full-on
academy?
police academy, which means you're going to be hired. So they're testing
So
to
it's
be
like
a reserve academy.
is this like a university compared to a community college kind of a
They're
situation?
going to let's say GCC, Glendale Community College, and taking law enforcement classes. And then if they get in the academy on Saturday and Sunday, they're doing their PT, their physical training. They're doing hands-on stuff on they're shooting on the weekends.
And that all counts toward the academy credits or whatever?
Yes. So
Okay.
where they can test and be a certified officer
Got it.
with a reserve status or a full-time officer.
Okay.
And we're taking those people. In my opinion, this is my opinion only, whoever doesn't like this, and I train our mutual friend, love him to death. But it's a lot tougher when you have 8 hours of someone shoving their fist down your throat and the intensity of that academy at the time.
The people that are teaching these reservists,
Our officers are also trainers, but not.
well, they don't
I
have,
know it's definitely easier than what we went through.
yeah, they don't seem to have an
And
incentive.
part of the problem today, too, is nobody wants to do our job because the picture that the media has painted. So when I tested for Phoenix, 2,500 people at the Civic Center going for maybe a half dozen positions. Same thing with the fire department. Like 25 to 5,000 people putting in for 10 spots. So you got to be the best of the best at the time. Now they're lowering standards, making it easier.
Yeah.
I've heard stuff that, you know, like in our military, where you can raise a little thing. Hey, I'm stressed out. Leave me alone. Well, no, our sergeant would have slapped you in the face and said,
Yeah.
"You think you're stressed now? What are you going to do when someone bum rushes you?"
Yeah.
Stop, sir. Stop, please stop.
This is
No, you got to
scaring
get
me.
in the fight.
Yeah. I wasn't even in the Army that long ago. It's been, or where am I at? Like 10 years. 10 years ago, that kind of stuff didn't exist. Like you could see it coming just a little bit here
Oh
and
my
there.
gosh.
But back then, if somebody tried to pull that kind of stuff, like, it's like you said earlier, these people you have to depend on to save your life.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
or their complacency can kill you.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
And
I've heard people ask for, in patrol ask for backups early on in my career working graveyards. Can you send me large officers?
really?
Yeah. Because they knew it was going to go, a gang party or something like that. Can
Oh,
we
yeah.
start 3 or 4, and it's all about availability. It's all about who's, not in doing a call at the time or on call or on another call. But if you hear the severity of this gang party, you're going to start rolling that way to help that officer out, And once you work an area, you know where the problems are always.
So what else would you train, or what else would you change or train about the academy, and what would you do for officers today?
I would make it a full. I don't know how to get them in there. Obviously, the pay's got to go up to get more officers hired and to find more quality people.
Yeah.
And the retirement, with me being retired now, the health benefit kicks our ass, our donkey. Excuse me.
So you have to have. You can say whatever you want. So you have to have better incentives for
Yes.
people to want to do the job, because
Yes.
the better pay you get, the
Yes.
more willing you are
to
do
go
a
out there
good-
and do this and to stick with it.
Yeah.
And, seeing so many friends that started and left after 5-10 years. It's like, you're halfway there. Come on, finish this.
Yeah.
The
see-
benefit, I get a paycheck. I'm on the paycheck of the month club now till I die. And then it transfers to my wife
Yeah.
at a different percentage, which I didn't think, I needed. Like I said, I took this job because I wanted to switch fields and get into something where I knew when I was going to be off work, which is a joke because I never knew when I was getting off. You get stuck on a crime scene, and you got off work when you got off work, and then being on call. So I wanted something where I knew I wouldn't get laid off. So a government job really stuck out to me. And then, like I said, coaching.
What's the combatives like right now in the academy? How much do they train? Obviously they train a little bit of here's how to handcuff somebody
Here's
who's
handcuff,
resisting.
yes.
But I see a lot of videos online of cops attempting 3, 4, 5 cops on one person trying to
It
cuff
looks
them.
terrible. But do you remember me talking a little while ago about if I did not want to allow anybody to put
Yeah.
handcuffs on me, you will never, unless you physically punch me in the side of the head,
Yeah.
pry my arms from right here, from my gut.
Yeah.
And again, you start off verbal, and then it goes physical, and then something like that. That's passive aggressive. They could be tased. And why is 5 officers? You got to win the battle. It looks
Yeah.
terrible. Someone's got to be telling that bad guy who's fighting and resisting, stop fighting. That's got to be repeated 1,000 times so that now everybody's filming you. That hey, I'm giving him verbal commands. He's willingly, knowingly fighting.
And that sucks, being an officer who's trying to strap someone down, because you're exhausting part of your energy in yelling at them when you could be using that energy to cinch down on their arm or whatever.
When you are in the academy, you come out in fantastic shape because, like I said, they ran our donkeys off at Phoenix Regional Academy,
Well,
up and down those mountains. So you come out thinking you're unbeatable. You get in your first foot pursuit and you're screaming on the radio like a baby. You are out of breath and you're looking at your training officer and like, why am I so? He goes, it's called adrenaline, dumbass. When that dumps, you got to learn how to fight through that. And that's why I'm ashamed that there are some officers, and I never fully answered that question. The city does not want to pay our police officers to work out on duty, period. Mm-hmm. That should be done on their own. The big fight. I was on the fitness committee, big fight with our city and city managers. I'm sorry. So because SWAT is such an elite thing and you need that fitness and need to be in good shape so you don't get hurt, they have fitness requirements. But we could not do it for the general officer. And it came down to, okay, Andy, you're one of our top homicide detectives, but you can't run a mile in 12 minutes and 50 seconds. Do we let you go?
A mile, that's the requirement for a mile?
It's based differently on age and gender and the Cooper standards.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, it's 11. Have you heard of the Cooper standards? That's an agency that delegated, and it was gender bias, which I disagree with. It needs to be the same. Mm-hmm. If that little 150-pound female officer can't drag my 300-pound body with all my gear out the door,
she doesn't need to be there.
Why? You know, and a push-up, why? You got to do a push-up like I have to do a push-up.
Yeah.
There should be no bias because of your gender.
Yeah. Some could say that it's sexist to separate the timing. I understand they're through those standards, they're recognizing that, okay, there are physiological differences between male and female, and we want to hire female officers as well. But just like you said,
we want the diversity. We want every make, model, and year. We want that.
I think that the citizens need that. You know, a woman needs to see a female officer. I think that's super important.
Yes.
People need to be able to see, you know, Hispanic, Black, Indian, whatever they are.
Yes.
We need to see that everybody is a part of this system.
Exactly.
Everybody's a part of it.
It should be a mirror of where they're working to.
But you shouldn't be lax on people because they're, you know, physically weaker.
Well,
in some
that
capacity.
question I asked you, that came down to the city going, do we get rid of that homicide detective because he's overweight, sitting in the office, because they have a ton of paperwork on their investigations, and he can't make his mile and a half or sit-up time. Do we get rid of him? And that's what it came down to.
Well,
how do we do that?
My question would be, is he solving cases?
Productive. I mean, that's what it came down to. He's productive at what he's doing. He's not going to run. He's not going to. But you know what? Those guys would get in foot pursuits and fights with people, and they're screaming for help when they're interviewing people. When they're out on scene sometimes.
Yeah.
So everybody should have a basis, but a lot of people just let themselves go.
Well, that's because they're not forced to maintain the standard.
Yes. We would have mandatory fitness, but not mandatory fitness times. And it came down to them not wanting to obviously give us the time or pay us.
Yeah. So right off the bat, you would heighten the standards and heighten the funding.
I would make everybody have a yearly fitness standard. and sorry guys, if I have to do it, everybody's got to do it. Everybody, needs to stay in shape for their mental health too.
Yeah.
And there's benefits to it. It's not fun. I get yelled at all the time by my wife. Why are we out here in 115 degrees riding our bikes or doing something? Well, I need it. I personally need it. Mm-hmm. I've seen too many of my friends walk away, harm themselves, do bad things with PTSD.
Yeah, and that's just for the officer.
Yes.
And as far as for the job of the officer, which is to be a public servant in all necessary situations, you need to be capable.
And a lot of injuries, though, come from being overweight. Having that gun belt on doesn't help either. And the wear and tear, the fights you get into, and just the job creates it. If you work in graveyards, you're not going to eat healthy. I mean, I tried. If you remember me packing carrots all the time and snacking and keeping my energy level up, and I would only eat certain things at certain times. I would do that on graveyards. But then on my Friday, it's like, let's go to Filiberto's and get a burrito. Let's go have breakfast and and the only places open are donut places and, all night or Denny's or whatever. So you're not going to get quality food. You can find it if you're looking for it. And the stress of the job just adds more problems to the officers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
I would want that. I don't know what you can change. It's a new breed of kid, and they're trying to find what works. Again, it's not the fire academy. We're not gonna slap each other in the rear end and say, "Hey, good job today." We got screamed at. We got mind screwed. Like, what'd you do? Like, I don't know. What am I in here? The commander's all, I don't know what I did. Well, they're just messing with you. I didn't know. I didn't realize that. They want to see how you react under stress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to answer that question, I would, obviously you want that picture perfect officer, female, male, whatever race, who can act with common sense and be a productive member of that department.
Yeah, yeah.
So too many people get on and go and hide in special positions and want to be unproductive and go to lunch for 2 hours and go to coffee breaks.
What I would propose is that right now there's 3 shifts in most average police departments, right? There's a day shift, a swing shift, and a graveyard shift. What I would propose is to add a 4th shift, hire a lot more officers, increase the funding, increase the standards, and use that 4th shift to offset the hours of the other 3 shifts so that 2 of those hours during shift every day that you work could be allocated to fitness training. Be a required thing. Every day you do your workout before you go out on patrol. You don't have to kill yourself, but you have to do something so that it gets your mind in the right place and everything. And then I would also do, since you're hiring a lot more officers, paying them better, higher standards, then it would also, I would add that one of their days a week, since you have enough officers to cover all the shifts all the time without a shortage, one day a week would be training instead of, one qualification a year or whatever it is.
It's twice a year advanced officer training that they get, but once a year firearms mandatory, they have to pass their quals. And from what I remember, for S.W.A.T, it was every week we were doing something, shooting or a training scenario. So for us, it was not a big deal. But it comes down to staffing. The police departments are stat driven. We had what was called a power shift. So when we had enough people, they would bring a shift in that overlapped it from like 4 o'clock until midnight, which was a high crime area, high crime time. So that's half of swing shift, graveyard coming on at 9 o'clock. This shift was called the power shift. They'd come in and boom and help out. But that's when you have staffing. If you have that, they built it and they do so many studies on what's the best shift. You're doing 410s at your company right now. When we got to that, they found that was the most productive. We tried 312s and almost killed everybody being out there. And I know MCSO does 312s. And we see a guy in the gym all the time. I don't know how you're working out on the day you worked. You get up and it's a 13, 14-hour day easily. And now you're in here working out and you got to be back at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
Driven.
He's a good dude. I hats off to him. But they do so many studies on what's the most productive shift. And 410s has been the number one with the best overlap with officers too.
If you were to redo the whole structure of policing, what would it look like?
Obviously, there's laws enacted that just don't get enforced, and people are going to hate this. They're letting everybody out of jail. Why'd they go to jail in the first place? Well, they're not a threat anymore. They're not. If people know there's punishment and going to do, it's going to make them think again. So obviously build more jails.
So stronger repercussions.
More officers, more pay, retirement incentives, healthcare. We talked about that. Stricter sentencing. Have the county attorneys follow through with what they have. And minimum, you make arrests. Early on in my career, it would piss me off when I'd find out people would get released so quickly. Or they got released the next day on a felony.
So that's got to burn out the willpower of your average street cop. If you're doing all this work to arrest somebody and then you see them back out 3, 4, 5 days later, what the hell was all that work for?
Yes. Gang
Why
member.
am I doing this?
Oh my God. Every day when I was on swing shift, he'd get in a fight with his girlfriend and put the cuffs on. And then this is before we had metal in our bars in our rear window. He kicked kicked my window out so many times. And then, felony assault on his girlfriend. The next day he's out again, like 5 or 6 times. So an officer pulled me aside because I was getting emotional and angry about it. And he goes, you do your job. Let them do their job. If this is what they're doing, it comes down to it costs money to lock people up.
Yeah.
It costs money to build jails. It costs money to feed them.
Yeah.
And then we're not humane enough and, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But if they just follow through with what we have, the utopia would be having enough police officers trained that look good. And then when we arrested people, they stayed in jail for the time that they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. And that ain't never going to happen. We were shorthanded the 25 years I was there.
Yeah.
And that's all we heard about. Once we get this SWAT will be full time. Never will be. They can't pull enough people away to do that full time.
That's multifaceted.
Yes.
One of it's obviously the pay.
Yes.
What else is it? The danger of the job.
Because I think the negative that the portrayal of the media, portraying how bad and how negative and how we are, and the black versus white, they only show that arrest,
right?
And not 99 times out of the day where I talk to a black person or a person of color and go, hey, how you doing? Hey, thank you. Can I see your ID real quick? Perfect. Hey, thanks. Not you. See you. Have a safe day. Yeah. And it's a positive interaction.
Yeah, you don't see all those.
You don't. No, they want to sensationalize and make us look like idiots every single day.
Yeah.
And they've succeeded. And the young people believe that's what happens. And I don't have to listen to you. Yes, you do, sir, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, I'd like your opinion on this. I've always had this thought of like, all right, what's the job? Public servant. That could go a lot of ways, right? Mm-hmm. We have, I think there should be different tiers of public service. And one of them should be things that you do or did. SWAT, the dangerous stuff, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but there's another tier that would be lower level. Like I don't know that cops that are doing SWAT or other patrol stuff dealing with certain types of crimes should also have to be writing traffic tickets. It seems to be
there's a motor squad.
Yeah,
so, here's the number one thing when our staff and chief sits down with City Hall, the number one complaint in the city is speeding vehicles. Every year, that's all they talk about. And our poor motors, they got to go. And again, it's educating the public. So they first go and make contact with the person who's complaining about a car's going 100 miles an hour down this road. It happened once, and it happens every day according to them. Mm-hmm. They'll talk to him. What time of day? When has this happened? Have you seen the guy? Does he live in the neighborhood? Can you identify him? Maybe I can go talk to him and solve this whole problem. Mm-hmm. So the actual officer's got to see this guy commit the crime, not write a citation off somebody else seeing it. So they do that, talk to the person complaining. Then they put a trailer out there.
Yeah.
And then what I like doing, I've done it a couple of times where you got extra duty, extra pay to go work a traffic assignment, working radar in an area where speeding vehicles or school zone or something like that. I'd bring that person out and go, hey, here's my radar gun. But let's watch cars go by. Now with my patrol car here, let me hide it a little bit. We'll get actual speed. As soon as I see the patrol car or any G ride, they're going to slow down. They're not going to speed. So this is going to be worthless. So you hide your patrol car and let's just stand out here. And I'll give you a rough estimate. This car's going, how fast do you think it's going? Oh, probably 60. Boop, 25. Wow. Their perception and what cars are actually going are two different things. So it's educating them.
Yeah.
So I would have them do that for like an hour, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back and do it. But ma'am or sir, know that when I put my patrol unit out here, everyone's going to drive slow and safe now.
Yeah.
But it's good though. It's teaching the person that's doing that. Hey, I don't know when an officer's going to sit or if he's hiding somewhere now, and then it's in the back of their mind. So that's another stage of policing is your presence. Command presence and your presence is showing up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in the police presence as a deterrent to crime.
Yes, exactly.
Now, when you were off work, were you still on duty, more or less, in your mind?
I'm laughing. I don't think you're ever off work. I don't think you ever retire from
Okay.
a job.
So that answers my question. Is policing a way of life or is it a job?
It is a way of life.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's all the above in a bag of chicken or something. I don't know, a bag of. So I, to this day, we were at church today. I had my pistol with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to go, man, I wish I could have protected myself.
Right.
I drive around, my job, I drive around and I point stuff out when I have riders sitting next to me and like, how'd you see that? Like, cause I watch, my eyes are constantly moving and you learn that stuff, do it just by doing surveillance, I'll pick out all the undercover units. I go, there's one. How'd you know? Well, look at those little nubby on his, above that car right there.
Those ones are really easy to spot.
I think so.
I think so.
But our guys don't see anything. They're just so in their own little world. And, we're driving. I'll see a kid on a bike at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, riding, looking with a backpack on. I'm like, let's sit and watch this guy. Why? He's a kid. He's just riding. I go, no, he's looking around and he's acting suspicious. So I want to investigate. I go, you don't ever lose it. You walk into a room and you're just like, okay, who's my threat? Who's my threat?
The anti-cop people are saying, oh, so looking around is suspicious? No,
well,
it's not.
At 1 o'clock in the afternoon when you should be at school or should be working, in a bad neighborhood where there's a lot of crime, I'm going to watch this guy.
Right.
And if he does something, if he rides up to somebody's house, okay, is he knocking on the door?
What?
Or is he going around back?
Yeah.
And if he's going around back, I want to see if he's going to kick the back door in because they'll knock on the front door and go around back, kick the back door in.
That actually happened to one of my coworkers the other day. They had some kid come and ring their Ring doorbell, and he looked like he was lethargic or he was something off about him. And then as he's at the front door, as my friend is at the front door looking out there, he heard a noise at the back door, which sounded like someone trying to get in. Mm-hmm. But he hadn't opened the door. So
burglary, one of my favorite things in patrol at nighttime, and took great pride in catching burglars. And there's a technique, whoever puts the call out or radio's putting out, you go in the neighborhood and you shut your car down and you start listening for dogs barking.
Nice.
And then you start listening to what direction, if he's hopping fences. And then you just go and sit and wait. And she's like, how do you see that? I go, I'm looking for movement right now. Well, there's nothing moving. Well, that's when something moves, it's going to catch my eye. Oh, that's a cat. Oh, my eyes are in wide scan looking for all this stuff. And can't tell you how many people we caught. And that rewarding. That's awesome. Super rewarding.
And what's crazy is that you hear about all the crime that happens, but you don't hear about all of the crime that was stopped.
Stopped by it, yes. Well, then, as one of my statements I wrote down in here to your question was, the paperwork is so ungodly. 5 minutes of fun and 2.5, 3 hours of paperwork.
Sucks.
Yeah. And if you're like me, because I'm going antsy right now, we're going to take a break here in a minute. You can't sit that long to do a booking, your report, and get back on the street. It drove me nuts. The best thing was when we had secretaries and I'd verbalize everything to them. They type it in, boom, I'm back in service.
That and one other thing were the biggest deterrents for preventing me from actually becoming an officer. I was on track for it, but I realized the amount of paperwork you have to do
is so paperwork driven.
Astronomical.
Well, think about liability. You've got to back up everything that you've done.
Legally.
So.
Do you need to take a break?
Is that
what
okay?
You're saying? Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, we're back from the break, and you were going to tell a story.
Some of the unique stories that I classified, and when we're looking at one of your books, I get a call of a loud party. I'm a brash officer. I'm like, I'll go. If I need a backup, I'll ask for a backup. And people know that I don't ask for them just for stupid reasons. If I'm asking for a backup, I need some help. I get there by myself. These guys are all in robes, and they're having a satanic worship and maybe even a sacrifice. And I walked in there and I felt the presence of something evil, bad. It scared the living piss out of me. And I go, listen, I apologize for interrupting you. The neighbors are calling. It's late at night. This is disorderly. No, I could do whatever. This is my practice. Really, it's okay until somebody complains. And it is loud. As I walked up here, I could hear what you guys are doing. And the loud music and the loud screaming and all that stuff, it grossed me out. And I go, you need to quiet everybody down. You can do whatever you want, religious-wise, or whatever you believe in, sir. And Man, it just gave me the eeriest feeling.
Was this in a house?
In a house,
So you
in a
walked
neighborhood.
into the house.
I knock on the door. No one's coming door, and I could see them, in the living room. So hello, Glendale Police.
What were they doing?
Either a seance or a.
Were they in a circle?
Yeah.
Did they have something in the middle of the circle?
I don't know. I was scared to look, sincerely.
Yeah. Wow.
It scared the living piss out of me. And
you could feel
found the owner of the house, felt just an evil in the house spirit, and like, I need to get my butt out of here.
Yeah.
I know I'm blanketed in the blood of God and Christ, but it scared the living pee out of me.
That's wild.
So I found who the owner was. I go, listen, this is your house. You're in charge of everybody here. If we come back, you're going to jail. Oh, you can't do that. Watch me.
Were they trying to use freedom of religion as
yes,
their
that
reason?
was their basis. You can't do that. I have a right to practice my religion. I go, I don't care what you practice here or what you do in your home.
Yeah.
With willing and participating people. I don't care. But you're loud and the people outside are complaining. That is a crime here in the city and in the state. So there are evil things and evil people in this
handled.
world.
What color were the robes?
I don't remember. This is 30 years ago.
Sorry.
Gross.
All right. I got a few more questions here. This is a good segue. How did your faith play a role in your everyday work?
We have a chaplain assigned to the police department. And Darlene Daninger was
Red Corvette.
The sweetest woman in the face of this. She is a godchild. And her husband, been a Christian man since 1975 or 76. I gave my life to Christ at a young life, like I told you. Didn't practice, didn't force going to church until I moved to California, when I got really scared of all the stuff like we talked about earlier. And really didn't think about my faith until, as a police officer, until a Bible study with Tony Daninger, her husband. And he brought this verse into it that just totally justified. And I think I switched my hard donkey attitude to more of compassion and loving and care, because it is a godly job, which I didn't know. Yeah. Romans chapter 13, verse 1, every person is subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority, this is the New American Standard Version. There is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon them. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. I didn't read that right. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for the evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a servant of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid. For does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a servant of God, and an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this you also pay taxes for the rulers. So when he read this verse to me and said, everything is subject and placed into that, I'm like, I'm doing a godly job. And didn't even know it until maybe 10 years on my career. And went, wow, I need to start acting like a compassionate man, giving back, and a public servant. The squads I were on, we were called the Beef Squad. My wife grew up
that's incredible.
Hearing that how strict and how tough the Glendale officers, you don't mess with Glendale officers. And me hearing that growing up in Phoenix, hearing, hey, so we had a reputation, but now it was, hey, I'm going to protect myself. If you're going to fight, we're going to fight. If you choose that. Yeah. But now it's like, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? And I started switching my language. Hey, what's going on here? Hey, how can I help you? I would get out of my car. How can I help you? Service. Well, if I can, a servitude attitude. Yeah. And if I can help you, I'll help you. But if the law's broken, I have a job to do too. And it made it not feel as dirty. It made it not feel as evil, what I was doing. So people are like, how do you put Christianity and a police work and shooting? I've been in multiple shootings. And yes, unfortunately, someone lost their lives. That was their choice, though, not my choice. Mm-hmm. So it really changed everything once I read that verse and understood it in this Bible study by Darlene's husband, Tony.
That's a great verse. I've never read past the first segment of
Yes.
it, but the rest of that's phenomenal. Two other quick questions here. Do you feel as a police officer that you've ever been an oppressive force to people who didn't deserve it?
Gosh. Well, again, I think you're on a call for a reason. And I would. Do your emotions get caught up in things sometime? Yes. And I'm just only going to use a story about I was delivering a juvenile who's maybe 16, 17 that molested his 3-year-old sister. And at the time, our daughter was 3 years old. And I had to drive him to the detention facility for the detectives.
Did you guys make it all the way there?
I didn't stop the car, but I mean, policy, we're supposed to seatbelt anybody in, but in 25 years, I probably only seatbelted a couple because that puts you in a danger, and we practice that. You know, if I'm a right-handed shooter, I put them on the passenger side in the back, and I lean across, my forearm goes on their chest, and then I put the seatbelt on for them. But that just puts me right next to them. I've been spit on. Yeah, I've been kicked, head butted. So I just didn't never do that. So my car probably had a whole bunch of malfunctions with the brakes that time going down there. And I don't know. And man, I couldn't slow my car fast enough around turns to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's
Is that unjust?
There's policy and there's justice. And sometimes those two are not the same thing, unfortunately.
And I know, and I'm not perfect. Let me just say that.
Right.
If someone was on the ground and they were resisting, there's different standards. If you're taking someone into custody on SWAT, they're obviously Billy Badass and they don't want to go to jail and they're willing to shoot it out with you. So they got different treatment. There was nothing ever nice about taking anybody into custody on that position.
Going back to that verse in Romans, it talked about authority and it laid it out really clearly. And I want to draw a distinction between authority versus power. You can have power without having authority.
Yeah.
But you cannot have authority without having power.
Yeah.
So I guess my last question would be, did you experience what they refer to as the gut feeling or the hunch throughout your time, or was it mostly common sense, like listening for the dogs barking for burglars?
I can honestly tell you, I was talking with another officer just the other day who's still a detective there. She's a sweetheart. And she talked about that sixth sense where the hair sticks up. That is a true thing. Me being a hard charger, not wanting to wait for a backup on a call a couple times, going in the room, subject with a gun at our fight or a knife, and I went the wrong direction. He was over here, and I went straight to the bathroom because I knew the bathroom was over here, and I'm like, oh, he's going to be hiding there. Boom, he was in the closet and came out with it up. And I was on such alert that boom, and you practice getting your weapon out of the holster as quickly as you can. Didn't have to shoot him. He dropped it right away. But there's so many times where you just walk in a room, and especially that satanic worship thing, just put my hair and neck in the cackles.
Yeah.
But to say that, you know, every search warrant, every hostage situation, the guy's telling you, I'm going to kill the first person that comes in here. And you're going in there. Was I ever nervous? Or that's where the training kicks in, and you slow your breathing down. You shoot under stress. You learn how to breathe. Same thing when you're getting ready to go in. I'm rehearsing. I know the layout. By looking at houses after a while, you start going living room, kitchen, hallway, bathrooms, bedrooms, and you start knowing and what your assignment is, what you're going to do. And boom, it's a big explosion, and you're going in, your eyes are wide open, and which I tell everybody, I think was the most sensation, like football for me, being a middle linebacker, being a linebacker, is just seeing a whole picture fast and finding the running back, finding the bad guy quickly as that door opened, and what's he got in his hand, what's he do, is he compliant, is he not, and then, trusting your teammates around you. A couple times going in a room, shooting where I had to go this way, and my partner came in right behind me and had to drop a guy. You got to trust your team members too on that. So never was worried at the prison, was worried on a couple high-profile search warrants that we talked about earlier, where, man, someone can get hurt here. Someone's going to get hurt or shot, and I don't want any of our team members. Hopefully it's a bad guy.
That's awesome.
But yes, that sixth sense, and again, being that Christian, we prayed. Darlene gave you is it St. Michael, who's the guardian for police, gave us a coin. Ever since she gave it to me, I had it in my pocket every day
Oh, wow.
that I worked. And it's not a good luck piece, but it was like, Lord, please protect me today. Let me make the right decisions in this every call I go on. Let me be compassionate, understanding, and give back to these people. They just can't see me as a bully, beating the crap out of their son or something like that. I want to do it. And then the older you get, the smarter you get. I signed up not to sit in an office and tell my partner sitting next to me, how great I am. I signed up to chase bad guys and fight people. And it's probably the wrong reasons and to chase people. So I'd literally, when I was in great shape, I would run next to people while they're trying to run from, like, this is it. Give me a good workout, please. And then push them over and stuff like that.
Well, thanks a lot for having this conversation.
Yes.
It's been pretty insightful.
Thank you.
Is there a piece of advice or wisdom you'd give to current officers?
Man, God, say your prayers. I mean, it sounds dumb.
No.
God, just get your heart right. We're all one breath away. You know that. We've talked about some tragedy in our life. One of our cousin, her aunt's daughter's in a coma right now, and just one breath away from one virus that we've never heard of, and been on life support for the last 2 months. So we're all one breath away. Take care of each other. It's a job. Leave it. Go home to your family. Find your happiness in your family. Make other friends besides just police officer friends, which they tell you all this in the academy. And have a stress reliever. It's not alcohol. It's not drugs. Have a stress reliever that you can calm yourself down, get away, and take your vacations. Don't work every freaking day you're off.
Yeah.
There's opportunities for everybody to work 7 days a week constantly. They're that shorthanded. But take your time off, get mentally square. You are doing a godly job. And as I see every officer, it's the standard, hey, be safe. Get home every night to your family.
That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Take care.